Okay, Assalamu alaikum. Hope you are well. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Right, sorry for the delay today. I had to reschedule just because some things came up and I couldn't start on time. But anyway, we're here now. And I already did a Q&A one in the beginning, midweek on Wednesday because it was requested. Okay, assalamu alaikum. Sorry. Can you hear me now? Just want to check the mic. I think so. It should be on. All right, excellent. Okay, so once again, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. Hope you are well. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. And Ramadan Kareem Mubarak and Eid Mubarak early because we're almost done with this month. I have somebody backstage, so I'm just going to bring them on straight away. So Fox. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum, Dragon Light, and others as well. Assalamu alaikum, Hamid. All right, brilliant. So, and assalamu alaikum, Nasir. Good to see you. So I did a stream midweek Q&A because quite a few people had requested to do one in the middle of the week. And so I'm doing this one as well, just to gather up anybody else who wasn't able to attend. Alaikum assalam, Nasir. Okay, so then bring on Silver Fox. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, I can hear you loud and clear. How are you doing?
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. I've been a long time lurker, actually, for a while.
Really?
Yeah. I've been following your stuff for a while now, actually, since I think it started on Reddit, but then I followed you on X.
All right, okay.
Yeah, I don't know, you might not remember me, but yeah, have had quite a journey. So it's the first time I'm meeting you, talking to you.
Yeah,
actually, on here.
yeah, quite a journey, huh? Haven't we all?
Yeah, no, I mean, like for me, so just some context. Obviously, I live in London, UK, and I had like a Salafi background since I was at college, all the way until uni. And then after that, I think uni, like, I had some questions and this whole thing about tajseem, where anthropomorphism, and
Yeah.
I got confused. But I believe in some sort of higher power, and I think it was during this time I spoke to you on Reddit, I believe, and you told me about to look into history and all this stuff, because at the time I was against like anything that isn't Salafism or Sunnism.
Yeah.
So when I went down that path, it was like a big shock for me. Like a lot of these, I would say I found like scholars would hide things from history. You told me to look at history from like an Orientalistic point of view or the Shia point of view, and I think I was leaning toward like Shiism after that. I didn't become a Shia, but I would say like the history like just made a lot more sense.
Yeah.
And then I think after looking into that, like I just moved away from Salafism and Sunnism altogether, actually, and started focusing more on Tashayyu and Qur'an. And I think the more I followed you and what you said, like the more it made sense logically. And I think I feel like you're on the right path here. Like what you're saying makes a lot of sense. Like looking at it logically and stuff. And I think one particular thing that stood out to me is reincarnation.
Yeah.
And I was looking into, like, I mean, the past few weeks actually, I was just looking into it, and because of, like, this is the month of the Qur'an and stuff, I was just reflecting on some ayat of the Qur'an, and I remember you mentioned something about reincarnation happens, especially with children or those who have died unjustly, like shaheed, or something to that effect, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but while I was looking into this, do you think reincarnation can happen in the sense where, like, when you die, you can come back as an animal? And the reason why I'm saying that is because there was a verse. What was it? Let me see if I can find it quickly.
Yeah, no problem. Take your time. No, it's very interesting that you mentioned all that about the history. I mean, I've always thought and I've wanted to do a lot more about history on this channel. I think the only thing about history which I've got is I think it's called I called that video A Tale of Two Prophets and Two Mosques, something like that.
Yeah, I've watched that one.
Yeah,
It's really
but it is. I think maybe I do want to do more of that down the line because for some people that really is the barrier, right?
yeah,
That sometimes you can't really there are some people you can't get them to take the Quran seriously
yeah,
until a lot of the things which are surrounding or being barriers to the Quran are removed, and one of those is the history, having like this very rosy view of the history that the sect or the religion that you follow it has come down to pure down history, right? And when you show that that's not true to some people, then they can start like to it's like a wake up call, isn't it? And yeah, definitely the Shia they don't have the rose tinted or whitewashed history that Sunnism has, and in particular also the more extreme version of Salafism has. Right, they have a much more accurate um, depiction of the history and early Islam. But yeah, it's very interesting.
yeah. I definitely agree. Because when I was a Salafi slash Sunni, I it's exactly what you said. Like, they have a very rose tinted view of history, and about exonerated, like having such high putting Sahabas, all the Sahabas, on a pedestal, which
Mm.
I later found out was not the case. There was a lot of atrocities that a lot of them committed, not to mention the battles such as
Mm.
Jamal and Siffin, and
Yeah,
some of the prophecies that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam prophesied about
prophesize and stuff.
Muhammad.
Yeah.
Yeah, and even my perception of Ali alayhi salam came into
Mm.
play. Like, I think when I was a Sunni, I don't know what it was. I think I had a bit of a negative view towards Ali alayhi salam when I
Yeah.
was a
Yeah.
Sunni Salafi.
Yeah,
And
I did as well. I think
yeah,
it's weird. It's a weird thing because it's never actually said as anything negative, right?
right,
But there's this sort of like undercurrent of like like little digs or something which you don't notice, I suppose. But
yeah,
then they
and
come into play and then they just become sort of like part of you. Like yeah, um,
yeah,
there's
100%.
that, and then there's also I think some part maybe which is almost natural, kind of
Mm,
like I don't know if it's like kind of like jealousy or this kind of stuff, which is that because when it comes to like the others,
yeah,
you can say, okay, I could have been like any of them. You don't have to be have any relationship with the prophet, right?
exactly.
Whereas when you look at Ali and you think, okay, then maybe you sort of like say, nah, uh, I could never match him because I'm not from the family. I wouldn't be from the family of the Prophet or something like that. But of course, the issue with that is that the Prophet had many numerous other people from his family, right? He had other cousins,
Exactly.
other uncles, and none of them really dedicated themselves in the way that Ali did. So that's very interesting. By the way, like which let's say which year were you in university? because I remember how things changed, right? So early on, it never used to be this. So very early on, it was like much more Salafi. Um, the environment in London was very very Salafi, and
It
then
still is.
slowly started to change. Is it back now
I,
even more?
I would say so I live in East London, and I
Hmm.
would say the vibe of Salafiyya, like the manhaj, is very I would say still then
Still
very
very
strong.
strong. Yeah.
Very strong, especially in the east of London. Where I went to university was west of London,
Okay.
um, and it was Brunel University. This was in 2017,
Okay.
and I would say it was there, but it was not as much. But now I think it's quite rampant.
Yeah, you know what I think it is. I think it's the online dawah guys. They brought it
Yeah,
back,
yeah, yeah,
but for a while it was going down. For a while
yeah,
it was sort of had blown its steam back in, sort of
yeah.
like 2001 to 2005, six. These times, you know, I was in university in 2006, right?
Oh,
2005,
yeah,
around these times, and it's sort of blown its steam quite a bit, and there was a resurgence of a sort of like more
yeah,
traditional
yeah,
Islam, of like going back to, you know, the madhahib al-arba'a, you know, studying, you
yeah.
know, the madhabs again. You know, there was still the influence of, you know, people like Hamza Yusuf.
Mm,
Um, so, you know, the Sufism aspect wasn't um, as derogatory as it was. But then I think it resurged with some of the online da'wah guys and the speakers corner people, and the popularity of Muhammad Hijab, and you know, these people, like they were all Salafis, the Salafi bros, Salafi da'wah bros, and so I think that helped to make it have a resurgence.
yeah, 100%. Because when I was in college, it was these sort of groups that would they would actually come into our college, and they would like sort of encourage to join the ISOC, which is called the Islamic Society.
Mm.
I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, these type of groups were very um, very Salafi focused, and they
Mm.
would, I would say, maybe conditioning is a strong word, but I think in this case it was appropriate. In my case, at least, it was quite appropriate at the time, because I felt like I was being conditioned. They were
Mm.
like encouraging you to go to these classes, and what do you call it? Uh, they would have like these after school sort of clubs, and they would strongly
Yeah.
encourage people to go and do it.
Mm.
And I feel like the people these days, I'm speaking on behalf of my brothers, because they're very actively Salafi, and they're part of these kind of groups, and
Mm.
it's like they skip over a lot of things, and they don't talk about it in depth. Like, for example, Tajseem, like when they have classes on Allah, for
Mm.
example, and they say um, Allah has a hand, and they will take the literate point of view of the Quranic verses.
Yeah.
And when they question further on it, they would just say, "We just say this is their response." They would say, "We just say that it befits His Majesty."
Yeah.
Like if
I
he had a hand,
imagine. Yeah.
exactly, and they don't go further than that, and it caused a lot of problems, and
Mm.
especially like when they go outside, when they start debating with non-Muslims and etc. I
Yeah.
feel like because they're not prepared, they go into deeper holes, such as like the
Yeah.
Dabos, when they're more prepared for these kind of questions.
Yeah.
But other than that,
Yeah, but they don't get that sort of stuff
they
with
don't
non-Muslims.
exactly,
Most non-Muslims will not ask them about God
exactly,
having a
yeah,
hand or this and stuff. That doesn't happen so much. But yeah, I mean, I remember those days, man, in university when we used to, because that's when I started actually studying um, in the traditional way as well. But, you know, like I said, at the
yeah,
time, it's blown off its steam. There
yeah,
were still elements. There were still little sort of like fringe things from the Hizb ut-Tahrir days, right? Because
yeah,
Hizb
yeah,
ut-Tahrir
yeah,
was pretty big when I
yeah,
was in secondary school. That was when
mm,
Hizb ut-Tahrir and Muhajirin and those groups were big, and then they died down. By the time I got to university, these things had died down, and there was a resurgence of studying in the traditional way. And from actually university, I got into contact with the first person who I learned studied properly with, right? And you know, and you know, again, it's like, you know, the old books basically. I mean, the first book which I studied was a Shifa of Qadi Iyad, right? So we used to actually go to, I think it was in LSE. It was in LSE where,
Okay. Yeah.
yeah, I used to go to UCL, but it was
Oh,
in
nice.
LSE where where this halaqa sort of used to be. So I'd go over there
Yeah.
and we'd actually study these books properly, right? So the Qadi Iyad, and the person who was teaching us, his teacher had told him, look, start with this book, because one of the big issues now is people don't know, don't understand who the prophet was, right? And
Yep.
the Shifa of Qadiyat is supposed to teach about the prophet. Not, it's supposed to be a seerah. It's not a biography. It's supposed to teach you about the prophet as a prophet, right?
Right.
His qualities and this and that and the other, and what distinguishes a prophet from a non-prophet and these sort of things. So that was very interesting. It was a very, very fun time. And after that, we went through the whole of the Ihya Ulumuddin of Imam Ghazali. We did tafsir. So it was very, very fun times, to be honest.
Yeah.
Even if in the end you don't take every, I mean, the great thing about that time when you're going out places and you're studying and you're active in that kind of way, even if not all the stuff that you learn ends up being accurate, I think it still has a very positive effect on you. Just the act of going out sincerely as a young person, naive maybe, right? But you're going out trying to learn, right?
Yep.
And as long as you are doing it with a certain amount, I think, of certain amount of adab, right? And what you take away from it, you don't start to let it you don't start to become arrogant with it and start trying to straight away be a teacher to others, right?
Yeah.
I think it can really help you, right? Even if it's wrong, even if you end up like what you're saying, you end up going to just to study Salafi Islam from a Salafi angle, right?
Yeah.
If you're taking over humility, right? If you're doing the studying with humility and knowing your limitations and coming out of it to benefit yourself, not so much to bash other people with it. Just the act and the process and the time period of doing that, I think it can be very good for you, no matter what.
100%. And I think while I was there in the ISOC and stuff, and I did pick up some good habits. And I think if it wasn't for that, like stuff like lowering your gaze and being zealous towards knowledge and stuff, I think those kind of things really did take an effect, and it develops certain characteristics in me, which I don't think I would have picked up anywhere else. So 100% agree on that.
That's great.
Sorry,
Anyway, we were talking, but
yeah.
Go on.
So it was touching upon reincarnation, because I asked if you can be reincarnated as an animal, and the reason why I'm saying that is because I remember there was a verse in Surah Al-A'raf and Surah Al-Ma'idah when Allah, I think he was cursing Bani Israel or someone and a group, and said that they'll be turned into apes, pigs and apes, if I'm not mistaken. I think I got the verse here. Those whom Surah Al-Ma'idah, verse 60, those whom Allah has cursed and with whom He became angry and made of them apes and pigs and slaves of Taghut. And I feel like I know in certain other religions, much older religions like Hinduism, Taoism, and etc., they believe in reincarnation, but as in plants, you can reincarnate as plants and certain animals, butterflies, and etc. And when I saw this verse, I thought, because I know you said something about the children, people being reincarnated and they have a second chance, and children remember past lives. And I thought, can the same be said for animals? And I think I don't know what it was, but there was a saying pigs are very similar to humans. Like the eyes apparently look very similar to humans. And I thought, then when I saw this verse, and I thought, is there a link there?
Yeah, what's the verse? Tell me so I can put it up.
Verse Surah Al-Ma'idah and Surah Al-A'raf, Surah Al-A'raf, it would be verse 166, and Surah Al-Ma'idah, it would be verse 60. So Ma'idah would be 5, Surah 5.
Yeah. So I can talk about this one. فلما عتوا عما نهوا عنه قلنا لهم كونوا قردة خاسئين. So generally, I mean, it's very interesting. I never thought of it this way, to be honest. I never thought any of these verses linked with any kind of reincarnation or anything like that, right? So I'd need to definitely think about it. But this one, I did speak about it in one stream, right, which was called I think called the bee monkeys or something like that, right? So the idea with this is, of course, it's if you look at it in the context and just look at the next verse, you'll see that, of course, they weren't actually turned into like because it's basically, if you go back, it's basically a documentation of Bani Israel, right? About how they, how obstinate they were, right? For a number, of a number of things, yeah. So if I go back, it starts off with, well, it doesn't start off from here, but it goes on. But let's say from here, right? وقطعناهم 12 أسباطا أمما, and we cut them up into different right? 12 different tribes or nations, right? And then we told Musa, when he asked to, when he wanted water for his people, that strike with your staff the rock, and and then 12 springs of water, right, came out, and then each of them knew what to think, etc., right? So these are some of the blessings they were given, right? But then, of course, after that, they were very obstinate in many ways. So it says, when they said, go into this qarya, and of course, later on they said, you and your Lord go and fight. We will sit here by ourselves. When they finally entered, they also, go and say in hitta, right, and go and prostrate, right. But then they changed things. Then talks about they changed things, and then God sent down a punishment to them, and then he said, and then it's about this township which was close to the coast, to the sea, and and the violation of the Sabbath, right? And again, it's just talking about that with قَالَتْ أُمَّةٌ مِّنْهُمْ, when some of them said, why are you trying to spread knowledge to other people, right? And then so and it's listing all of these, right, that they were being very obstinate, and then right at the end over here it says فَلَمَّا عَتَوْا عَمَّا نُهُوا عَنْهُ. So when nothing was working on them, it's basically Allah saying here, like, okay, then fine, you want to be like apes, you be apes, right? Because what they were doing is they were basically just copying, trying to like game the law, right? Just trying to copy the outward form of the laws that they were given, but not actually implement it, right? So when they said that, just you want to be like apes, be apes, right? Probably explain it much better in the live stream where I did about. But the point is, the next verse talks about how these same people would then continue to be punished, right? So if they had been changed into monkeys and pig, monkeys in this case, right? This verse only mentioned monkeys. If they had been changed into that, then this next verse would make no sense, because it says, وَإِذْ تَأْذَنَ رَبُّكَ لَيَبْعَثَنَّ عَلَيْهِمْ إِلَى يَوْمِ الْقِيَامَةِ مَنْ يَسُومُهُمْ سُوءَ الْعَذَابِ. And your Lord declared He would send men against them who would inflict dreadful suffering on them until the day of judgment, right? So it's obviously talking about they're still people, right? They haven't been transformed. So I was talking about this verse in the context of the idea that they were actually transformed into monkeys, which I know you're not saying, right? But that's how I went with this. So I haven't actually thought about it in terms of, could it be that there's some reincarnation into the animals? Now, generally, I would like on out of that, I would say probably that wouldn't happen, because the point of it is that we're supposed to be tested as human beings, right? And so my idea about the the reincarnation. It's an idea of having limited. It's an idea of limited reincarnation.
Mhm.
For the sole purpose of completing the whole point of being why we're here in this world, which is to be tested. So,
Mm.
the Quran says, هو الذي خلق الموت والحياة ليبلوكم أيكم أحسن عملا. He's the one who created death and life so that he may test you which of you is best in deeds, right? Best in actions.
Yeah.
I brought up the idea of that just because, it solves a lot of problems, solves the issue of, the idea that people think that everybody dies, even if somebody murders somebody else, that was his time to die, right?
Right.
And that's
Yeah.
the issue. That's the issue when it comes to free will. It's the issue when it comes to a lot of things. What do you mean it was his time to die, right? Just anybody could get a gun or a knife or something, go out into the street and just murder somebody, and they're deciding to do that. It's their free will, right? And you're saying that if they didn't do that, then what would have happened? A rock would have fell down from the sky to kill him at that precise moment, right? No, right? So it solves a lot of issues when it comes to that. It solves the issue of, okay, what about those who die young? Because the Quran talks about the people in hell. They'll, when they complain, there's a verse which says, "Did we not give you time enough so that those who could take heed would take heed?" Meaning everybody ends up in hell has lived a long enough life, right, to
Yeah.
take heed.
I got a
Yeah.
quick question. Sorry to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
That verse that you just quoted now, would you say that's a case for reincarnation then? So if someone doesn't
Yeah.
live long enough, because I remember you did bring this up a few times, both in Reddit and on here, that if you don't live a long enough life,
Yeah.
that you can come back, and there's this whole thing about past lives that children remember, and I even saw an documentary about that as well, and it's quite fascinating. I think, but like I've had this argument with my wife a couple of times, and she's just totally against reincarnation. She thinks that it's not part of Islam, it's not part of the Qur'an or anything like that. But and bringing these kind of verses to her, she's not convinced.
Yeah, I don't think it's really explicitly part of. I don't think it's actually really part of the Quran at all. Really, it's not. But I'm talking about it in terms of like the Quran is not against it, right? And there are logical reasons why it can be true, right? And why it would help. So when it comes to this verse, yes, I think that it comes down to really being tested enough in this world. It's not really so much about how long you live, right? That is important as well. But let's say even if somebody lives quite a long life, but then at the end, by the time like that time is done, which I'm guessing probably wouldn't happen, because the way the dunya is set up, the way and Allah does intervene and is active in this world. There's angels which are active in this world. Everybody will be put in positions where they will be tested enough, where they will either be clearly will be somebody who will go to hell, or clearly will be somebody who will not, who will go to Jannah. I don't think that you can end up being sort of like in between, right?
Like a limbo, yeah.
Yeah. I don't think that. I think the whole point of having a good test, right, is that you can clearly mark those who have passed from those who have failed. A very good test does that, right? It doesn't leave anybody sort of like in between, right? So ultimately, I think people will be tested. But the problem is that, of course, there's free will, right? So things can intervene. Right now, look at the amount of people who have probably died in Gaza now, right? We don't know the exact numbers, but all the way up to like 600,000 people, right? Are we all going to say that was actually their time to die, right? That they had a long enough life, that they were tested well enough, right? No, and also just the idea that just somebody, because like a child dies. How many of the less than 1-year-olds were killed in Gaza, right? And the idea that every soul among them just automatically goes to Jannah because they died young. Well, again, that's not part part of the reason why souls are brought into this world. We're here to be tested. أيكم أحسن عملا, right? So it solves a lot of problems. It does solve a lot of problems. Now, the verse you mentioned, I put on the screen here, which is وهم يسترخون فيها, and they will, cry out in it. ربنا أخرجنا نعمل صالحا. Oh our Lord, let us come out. We will do good, right? غير الذي كنا نعمل, other than what we used to do, which is, again, and this is also one of the verses which I point to as showing that hellfire and judgment is based on what you do. Because it says, let us come out, we will do righteousness other than what we used to do. It doesn't say, let us out, we will believe, we'll have faith, or, It says, and then the reply is, أَوَلَمْ نُعَمِّرْكُمْ مَا يَتَذَكَّرُ فِيهِ مَنْ تَذَكَّرَ. Did we not give you life long enough so that he who would take heed would take heed, right? So that tells me that those who are there are not going to be like young people who didn't who weren't given enough time to take heed.
Okay, interesting. I wanted to say, you mentioned about those who enter Jannah will be those, or enter Jahannam are those who actually deserve it. I was reading some verses, and most of the verses that I see, that the requirement to enter Jannah is to be a believer and do good deeds. I know that you always sort of say that it doesn't matter about what you believe or what your religion is. You will still enter Jannah based on your deeds. But when I read these verses, they always accompany with doing good deeds with being a believer. How would you tackle that? How would you sort of explain that?
Yeah, so I've explained them in two ways. The main one is, of course, that those verses say إِنَّ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ لَهُمْ جَنَّاتٍ, right? So it's not really a condition. When you said these are conditions for Jannah, it's not a condition. It's more like a description, right? So it's saying those who have faith and do good deeds, they will be in Jannah, right? So it's descriptive, right? Of course they will be in Jannah. Where else will they be, right? Those who have faith and do good deeds, they will be in Jannah, right? They're just saying what they will have, right? So it's not saying that the condition to enter Jannah is this. The next thing about it is, of course, when it says "Inna alladhina amanu," if you are, imagine that you are in Mecca and Medina, and the Quran was coming down. Well, what does this mean? Inna alladhina, it means the Muslims, right? It means the Quranic terminology for the Muslims, right, is alladhina amanu, right? So it says Ya ayyuhal ladhina amanu. It doesn't say, oh you Muslims, Ya ayyuhal ladhina aslamu, or al-Muslimin. The community of the Prophet, the believers in the Prophet, are rarely addressed in that, right? And even this, when you say Inna alladhina amanu wa amilu salihat, those who have faith and did good deeds, faith in what? Faith in what? Right? So is it what? Belief in God? Well, everybody believed in God at the time, right? All of the kuffar of Mecca, all of the mushrikeen, they believed in God, right? But they didn't have trust in Him. More specific thing would be those who had faith in the messenger, right? Because that's the distinguishing factor, really, right, between the kuffar mentioned in the Quran, right, the Meccans, or and the Muslims, right? They have faith in the messenger, right? So that's why also in the verse which talks about the different groups, religious groupings, and major religious groupings, right? إن الذين آمنوا والذين هادوا والنصارى والصابئون من آمن بالله واليوم الآخر. Truly those who have faith, right? Truly the believers, and those the Jews and the Christians. Well, the Jews and Christians are also believers, aren't they? So what does that mean? It means that إن الذين آمنوا is just basically talking about the Muslims. It means the Muslims, right? So those verses, when it says إن الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات, if you're there, you're reading this, you're receiving this, you're understanding that it's talking about you Muslims, the community, who do good deeds, right?
Yeah.
So إن الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات. So you guys, الذين آمنوا, you Muslims who do good deeds, for you will be Jannah, right? So that's how I would talk about it in that sort of way. Another way, if you want to talk about the actual meaning of Iman itself, is I don't think it's possible to do good deeds without some amount of faith, right? Now,
Right.
faith in what again, right? Faith in what? Because it doesn't say inna alladhina amanu billahi wa amanu salihat, right? That's not that's not the recurring phrase. It's left open in the Ladina Amanu, right? Those who have faith. Which again, why it really means the Muslims, right? When it says
Yeah.
Ya you Ladina Amanu, or you who have faith, that's what it's talking about. The same group, right? It's not talking really about believers in God, right? It's not talking about believers in God. It's talking about the Muslims. But if you want to take it as what it's talking about, what it's saying is Ladina Amanu, okay, Amanu in what? Amanu in what? So it's left open. So faith in God, of course, would be a good thing, right? But again, when you talk about faith in God, what is the faith in God that they have, which the mushrikeen did not, right? If you talk about beliefs are almost very, very similar, right? The Quran emphasizes that again and again. If you ask someone who created them, they will say Allah. If you ask them who is the Lord of the heavens and seven heavens and the earth, they will say Allah. If you ask them who brings down rain and brings life from the dead and the dead from the life, they will say Allah. If you ask them who is in control of everything, man biyadihi al-mulk, right? Who has complete dominion, they will say Allah. I mean, when you look at these verses, right, their belief in about Allah, right, is identical to what we're supposed to have. That's why these are used against them rhetorically, right? These are questions put to them, and they say Allah, and then the Quran says, "أَفَلَا تَعْقِلُونَ?" So then, فَأَنَّى تُصْرَفُونَ? How are you taken away then? How are you diverted from what? From ibadah to Allah only, which is the first of those, right? So they have all of these beliefs in Allah, correct? And yet their ibadah is being shared out to other than Him. That's the issue, right? So getting back to what I was saying, okay, the faith in what, right? One thing is that I don't think it's possible in this world to do good continuously, right, without some degree of faith in either the good itself, that the good is worth doing for its own sake, right, or that it will have a positive effect in the future. They will come back to you. That it will have a result in the future, right? You have to have that kind of faith before you will do anything good, because otherwise, why would anybody give charity, right? Like those who go out and give charity to just somebody on the street, right? It's an act of faith, right? Just to give somebody charity is an act of faith in itself, right? It's
I'm just curious. Does it say have faith in Allah, or does it just say have faith?
It just says have faith, right? The verses, I think that's what the verse you're talking about, right? That you're saying now many verses which say this. They all just say have faith, right? Well, they just say use the word amanu, right?
That's an interesting point. Yeah, because that leaves it. Because I have this argument quite a couple of times with some friends, and they always say you have to be a Muslim to enter Jannah. Like this phrase that always gets thrown around. Only Muslims will enter Jannah, and anyone before Islam, such as the Sabians and the Christians and the Jews, will also enter Jannah. But anyone after that, it's only the Muslims can enter Jannah. And I've always had an issue with that. And of course, like seeing the Quran, that when I'm reading these verses, I always see those who have faith and do good deeds, and it's always those two are always accompanying each other. And I always thought this is the condition that you need to have to enter Jannah. But then I always think like what came first, man or religion? Man came first, right? And then religion, and men created religion. So why is religion? Why is there so much importance in religion? I think even Allah in the Quran says something about like this is your deen and it's complete, right, or something like that. When Imam Ali was given was it Man kuntum wa fahada alimullah, when that was said, and then the verse was revealed that I think it was your religion has been completed and Islam is your religion. I don't know. I don't have a problem with the verse, but I just wanted to sort of understand it further. why
About
Allah,
the deen being complete. Yes.
yeah, like
I mean, that verse.
why, let me see.
Well, at first, I mean, I don't know. Maybe that's in the Shia reports because I'm not as familiar as I should be about them. But
Yeah,
that the verse which is usually linked with غدير خم من كنت
yeah,
مولاه فعليهم مولاه, and
yeah.
it's not that verse. It's the verse of what's it called? بلغ ما أنزل إليك من ربك
Yeah,
وإن لم تفعل فما بلغت رسالته. That one,
yeah,
right? But
yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
a very simple sort of retort against what you just mentioned, right?
yeah, yeah,
Um, is these set of verses in Surah Al Imran. So from Al Imran 113 up to 115. I mean, these show clearly that it's not just Muslims who are going to Jannah, right? Because it's obviously talking about Ahlul Kitab here, right? So it's
yeah.
saying ليسوا سواء. They are not all the same. من أهل الكتاب, from the people of the book, is a nation standing, or upright, um, reciting the verses of Allah, the ayat or the signs of Allah during the day, during the night, and they prostrate, right? Then it says they have faith in Allah and in the last day, and they enjoin what is right and they forbid what is wrong, um, and they race to goodness. They race to good deeds. وَأُولَٰئِكَ مِنَ الصَّالِحِينَ, and they are from the righteous. They are from the righteous. Now, of course, at this point, they will jump in and say that this is only talking about those Ahlul Kitab who became Muslim, right?
Yep.
That's what they will say. But of course, there's no indication that these are because they're still called Ahlul Kitab, so they are Ahlul Kitab, right? Um, and the next verse says, or they will say that these are the Ahlul Kitab of the past, right?
Yes,
Only
yeah, yeah.
before
That is,
Islam.
yeah. That's
Yeah, they
the
will say that. But here it's saying, وَمَا يَفْعَلُوا مِنْ خَيْرٍ فَلَنْ يُكْفَرُوهُ, right? But whatever they do of good, it will never be, rejected, or God will not be ungrateful for it, right? So never. That's actually the future negative. فَلَنْ يُكْفَرُوهُ, it will not be, right? So this is negating to the future as well, right? وَاللَّهُ عَلِيمٌ بِالْمُتَّقِينَ, Allah knows best the muttaqeen, so they're being called among the muttaqeen, right? And the other verse, which is very obvious, is which also is sort of like proof from the safe from being called abrogated, is the one about shir'atun minhaja, right, in Surah Al-Ma'idah, because the Ma'idah was the last surah to be revealed, right? I
yeah.
mean, in that very surah, you have the verse about today I've perfected for you your deen and chosen
That's the
Islam
one.
as your deen.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's the one. Yes.
yeah. You also have the verse about let me put it out here. The verse that every people have been deliberately made different, right? Allah didn't want us to all be one religion. That's not the goal. Allah doesn't want. If Allah had wanted, He would have made us all united in one religion. But that's not what He wanted deliberately, right? So that's what
How
this verse
come?
is. So after discourse about God revealing the Torah, right,
Yep.
and it is His guidance and light, and and then Allah revealed the Injil, and in it is guidance, light, and saying, let the people of the Injil, judge by what is it in it, right? I mean, I think it's a very previous verse, right? Yeah, it says here, وَلْيَحْكُمْ أَهْلُ الْإِنْجِيلِ بِمَا أَنزَلَ اللَّهُ فِيهِ. Let the people of the Injil actually judge by what is in it, right? So how are these now going to be? Somebody's going to claim, no, these are Muslims who have become Muslims. No, these are people who are still Ahlul Kitab, Ahlul Injil, and they are being commanded in the Quran for them to actually establish their own Injil, what has been revealed to them. And if they don't, they are called kafirin, right? Or fasiqin
Yeah.
in this case. وَمَنْ لَمْ يَحْكُمْ بِمَا أَنزَلَ اللَّهُ فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْفَاسِقُونَ, right? And the previous one, yeah, again, it's the same. It's the same. But
Just a
the
quick
main
one.
point, like I said, is this one, right? Because it tells you, it says, لِكُلٍّ جَعَلْنَا مِنْكُمْ شِرْعَةً وَمِنْهَاجًا. To each of you, we have given a sharia and a minhaj. وَلَوْ شَاءَ اللَّهُ لَجَعَلَكُمْ أُمَّةً وَاحِدًا. If Allah had willed, He would have made you one nation, one ummah. وَلَكِنْ لِيَبْلُوكُمْ فِي مَا آتَاكُمْ. But He wants to test you by what He has given you, right? And then it says, فَاسْتَبِقُوا الْخَيْرَاتِ. So race each other to good deeds. Race to goodness, right? That's the sort of like the punchline here, right? Just raise to goodness. That's what everybody will be judged upon. Okay.
Sorry to interject. One thing I wanted to point out. I think there was another verse which said about how Allah sort of condemned sort of Christians, saying that He has begotten a son, and that if He would have ripped open the skies and
Yeah.
thing. But doesn't this verse, what you're showing me right now on the screen, sort of not contradict, but there's a clash here.
Yeah. I mean, there's a clash in terms of what is perceived to be in that, right? So, I mean, this verse is not telling them. This verse telling them to establish the Torah and Injil, right? And I mean, we know that the Torah and Injil doesn't say that God, definitely, begot a son, right? This comes down also to understanding what the Torah and the Injil are, right? The gospel. I mean, they know that the gospel, the New Testament accounts aren't the gospel of Jesus, right? These are like the accounts, right? The narrative accounts, right? So I don't think that there's a clash. I mean, even like you've seen, of course, the da'wah that's done to Christians, where they say, "Look, I'll show you from your own Bible. Jesus never says he's God. Never says the Son of God. Never says this, right?" So that's again, that's what's being shown, right? So there isn't a clash. I mean, what we're talking about here really is the shir'at and the mihaja, right? Is a way and a path, right? The sharia, basically, right? The different sharias or the laws, or the like the way to pray, right? Right. So the Jews have their own way to pray. The Christians have a way to pray, right? They have their own guidance for charity, for this. It's talking about these things rather than the beliefs.
All right.
So much, right? Because in the end, again, it's about the actions that you do, right? So this is all about hukum, right? Let the people of Injil judge by what is in it, right? And previously you had this one talking about the Torah, and we wrote in it in the Torah, a life for a life, an eye for an eye. So it's really it's talking about these kind of things, right? This is what we mean by the shira'atan and the minhaja, and it's not so much about the theologies and stuff. The Quran, of course, does correct the theologies that came later, all right? But the thing about, again, when it comes to beliefs, beliefs are they're just beliefs. They're involuntary. I mean, once he shows, if you can convince somebody that something is wrong, right? Then that's when they are open to kufr, because once they start to see that something is wrong, right? Once they've received that gift of truth, right? They can either be grateful for it or ungrateful for it, right? That's where that happens. You can either be grateful, oh my God, thank you, you taught me what is right. I can't believe I was in error, right? And then they accept it. That's gratitude. That's shukr, the opposite of kufr. Or they can just say, you know what? They internally might say, oh damn, the guy is right. What you're saying is right. But but they will just continue to fight against it, refuse to accept it, not submit to it, right? That's when you have kufr, because now there's no sincerity, there's no honesty, right? You're covering up the truth, right? Which is a meaning of kufr, right? You're covering up this blessing of truth that you've been given.
I got a question. It's about shirk. Essentially, so my wife and I, we tend to follow. We tend to have like a very Qur'anic centric belief system, and including like this Ramadan, like when we break our fast, we break it at layl, as mentioned in the Quran. And as you know, like there's some, or rather, a lot of Sunnis and Salafis, they tend to break at Maghrib, which is it's not layl. And so I brought this up to someone, and they agreed with me, saying like that in the Quran does say al-layl, and they should be breaking it at layl, but they wanted to follow a scholar from Saudi to break it at Maghrib. Like this was a fatwa or something that he said. I can't remember what he said. Is that considered shirk? Because this is a commandment from Allah to break our fast at layl, and he's breaking at Maghrib, which is basically like sunset?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's a very good question. I mean, for example, me, I do believe you should break it out Maghrib, because I think the Quran does actually define Layl as when the sun is not seen anymore, right? So
Exactly. Yep.
it comes down to what your definition of Layl. What do you mean? Yes, we all agree. Everybody agrees that it says to break the fast at Layl. But what is Layl, right? That's the
Mm.
dispute, right? So yes, there are many of the, not many, I don't know how many to be honest, among like the more Quran centric views, which would define Layl as when it's dark, right? That's what, because that's in our minds what we think of
Right.
Layl. We think
Yeah.
night, we think darkness, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm definitely of the opinion that Quranically, right,
Yeah.
night and day are delineated by the visibility of the sun,
Right.
right?
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
الليل إذا يغشى والنهار إذا تجلى, right? So it says, والشمس وضحاها, by the sun and its brightness.
It's very
والشمس
clear.
وضحاها.
It's very
Yeah,
clear
so,
what Layl is, and I think because here in London, especially Maghrib time, like you could still see the sun in the horizon. Like
yeah.
it doesn't even look like sunset. It still looks like the sun is still there, and people are breaking their fast.
Yeah, I mean, you can't. I mean, the problem is, of course, places like London, you can't actually see the horizon most of the time, right? So
Exactly. Yeah.
it might look bright and stuff like that. You have to basically go on. And I did a post recently on Reddit about the mercy of why it's so vague, why the start of the fast is vague,
Yeah.
but the ending of it is precise. And again, I'm going by the idea that it's definitely Layl starts as soon as the disk of the sun goes down. So it's
Yeah. I agree.
basically,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's precise. It's
Yeah.
precise, and it allows everybody to be completely united at the time of the breaking of the fast. Right? It's a community thing. Your family is all together, and there's no sort of like dispute about it. Right? Now you
Yeah.
can finally, and you see people right waiting, like sitting there with the dates, and they're sitting around, and then they hit that and straight away drink the water. Alhamdulillah. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a mercy in that sort of way. Whereas on the other end, you have this very vague thing about when the thread, the white thread of dawn becomes distinct for you. حتى تبين لكم. It's subjective, right? Subjective. حتى يتبين لكم الخيط الأبيض من الخيط الأسود من الفجر. Right, until the white thread and the black thread of dawn become distinct for you. It's pretty vague, right? It's very vague, right? And I think there's a mercy in that, and you see that all the time, right? In around suhoor time, you find somebody who's like they woke up a little bit late from the time, and they're sitting there eating, and then the thing, the time for imsak comes along, and and I can just finish this and it's okay. Or somebody wakes up a bit, a little bit later, and they're still, they look outside and it's still, pretty dark. I don't see any white thread or thing. So there's a bit of a mercy of leeway there, right? Where people can't be sort of like held down and said, you are here, this is exactly where you have to start the fast, right? And beyond that, you are sinning, right? You can't really do that at the start of the Fajr, right? At the start of the fast, which allows you to basically eat and sort of like not be too fanatic about it, and then you sort of like say, okay, now I'm starting, right? You say to you, okay, now khalas, I've had my water, there's the tea, like my mom, she would want the tea only, right? So you shouldn't have a headache through the day, right?
Sounds like my mom.
Yeah.
She needs to have a coffee.
Yeah, exactly. Just get me tea or get me a coffee, right? So, so it is a mercy, right? Whereas when it comes to the end of the fast, I think it's very precise. Anyway, that was a post which I put on Reddit about that. But what you're saying there is definitely true. So if you are convinced that Allah is commanding a certain thing, right? And then somebody else is telling you something different, and you obey the other thing. Yes, that is a form of shirk. That is definitely shirk, because as long as you're doing it out of like servitude, out of like sort of reverence, sort of reverence. Okay, this is a scholar in Saudi. What he says go. I'm just going to do what he says. No, that's now you get into the territory of ibadah, right? Because ibadah isn't just about. It's not like, okay, I don't know, I'm just going to follow him because he's a scholar and I'm ignorant, right? that's something which it's can lead to a very bad end when you already can see for yourself you're not ignorant on something, right? So if you yourself say, okay, I'm sure that you break your fast at at night in terms of when it's dark, right? I think that's 100% true. That's what it seems to me, right? Now you see you're taking away your freedom, right, by following somebody else. You're
Mm.
taking away your direct freedom of being in ibadah to Allah, of having Allah as your Rabb, right? وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. I did not create the ins and the jinn except so they can be in servitude, ibadah to me.
Yeah.
And even before we came to this world, right? أَلَسْتُ بِرَبِّكُمْ, am I not your Lord? Who is your Lord? Am I not your Lord? I'm your, yes. And we all said, yes, Bala, Shahidna, right?
Yeah.
And then you come along and you're convinced of something your Lord has said, right? And then you decide to put that away and put yourself under a thumb of somebody else, right?
Mm.
And when it comes to something like fasting, not a big deal, right?
Yeah.
Not so much of a big deal. But what about other things, right? So where will that stop? Where will that servitude to the scholar stop? Right?
Mm.
So when it comes to, it tells you, okay, so you can cheat about this, or you can steal over here from a non-Muslim, or you can do this, or you can do that, you can lie here, you can do this here, and it's that kind of like it's those things which will take you away from what is right. Okay,
Mm.
so you have to. We are supposed to be completely free, right? And our ibadah to Allah is what sets us free, right?
Mm.
By having that principle that we will only be in ibadah to Allah. We will look at anybody else telling us what to do, and we will take the good that we see, right? But even if we can't see the good, we can sort of like have the option, right? But if we see that there's something definitely wrong in what this other is commanding us, no, that's where you have to put your foot down and say no, right? So
Mm.
yeah, I do see that that's been actually a real element of shirk. I've made a thing about that there's a lot of shirk fanaticism among the Quranists,
Oh yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah. 100%.
but this is where it really is. You have it, right? It's not then these little like things which sort of like more superstitious issues, right?
Yeah.
But when it comes to actually being um, 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 listening or obeying others, that's where you have the problem of shirk. That's why it's so dangerous.
Mm.
I would say in that sort of situation, if you're completely 100% sure that the fasting stops at when it gets dark, but you
Yeah.
say, well, I'm just going to listen to a scholar. Well, why?
Mm.
Why are you going to listen to the scholar in Saudi? Why?
Because their argument is always, it's either two things, because they're ignorant, like jahliya and stuff, or second is that they're following the community because everyone else is doing it.
Mm.
They don't want to be left out, or they don't want to break at a different time because it will break away from the community. So
Yeah,
those are
well,
two.
that's the attitude is lampooned throughout the Quran, right?
Mhm.
This is what everybody else is doing, right? This is what our forefathers are doing. This is what I mean, when it
Mm.
comes to, there has to be a point where your ibadah to Allah overrides your conformity to others, right? Your
Mm.
conformity to others. Now, if it's about ignorance, so they have to actually understand why they're doing this, right? If you want to actually make a judgment on when it comes to if it's shirk or not, or they have to actually be clear about why, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and they have to be absolutely clear about what they do understand to be from Allah. Okay. But if it's just yes, like you said, just somebody saying what, they're just like, because I understand that people have been I think a lot of people are religiously abused, right?
Mm.
So they so even when they see something as obvious in the Quran, they've been so indoctrinated with this idea that whoever gives his opinion about the Quran, even if he's true, he's a liar, right? You have these kind of um,
Yeah.
axioms that some of the scholars give, right?
Mm.
That you're not allowed to, you're not allowed to see what you see in the Quran for yourself, right?
Yeah.
And if you
Yeah.
see what you see in the Quran for yourself, then it's wrong, even if you're right. I mean, what kind of nonsense is that, right?
This is
But
what they used to do in the past. Like there'll be only learned people who will know the Quran, and the layman wouldn't understand the language like Arabic,
Mm.
and so they would just rely on the scholar to interpret for them.
Yeah.
And this is this is how indoctrination started, and it would they will instill fear into the lay people and just be sheeps to scholars and monks
Yeah.
throughout history. And I think in this era now, this generation with the internet and chat GPT and all of that stuff, like we have access to it and we can think for ourselves now, but it's
Yeah.
just people are so conditioned to follow scholars that
Yeah.
it's hard to break away from that.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
It
a big
is.
fitna. Yeah,
Yeah. So I mean, so I do understand when it comes to that there is some leeway, and but just has to be clear. I mean, a
yeah,
clear cut of somebody like I would be like really truly shirk is like, look, I don't care that the Quran says this, I'm going to follow this scholar. That kind of attitude, right?
can I say
Because
this?
he's greater than me, he's more knowledgeable than me, he's this, he's this. Oh, you've made him into a lord, you've made him into a Arab, right? So
Would you
that
say?
sort of thing. But somebody who's sort of like because they've their own confidence in their own hearing, their sight, that's been shattered, right?
Yeah.
And that's why the Quran talks about, أولئك هم الغافلون, doesn't call them mushrikun, right? When it talks about the وَلَقَدْ ذَرَأْنَا لِجَهَنَّمَ كَثِيرًا مِنَ الْإِنسِ وَالْجِنِّ, we have set aside for hellfire huge numbers of jinn and ins. They have, ears with which they do not hear, eyes with which they do not see, hearts with which they do not understand. They are like cattle, but
Mm,
rather worse astray. And it says, أُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْغَافِلُونَ. It doesn't say al-mushrikun, right? Because in the end, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about herd mentality, not so
yeah.
much the sheep doesn't follow the shepherd out of reverence for the shepherd. Okay, it
Mm,
follows the shepherd out of being part of the crowd. Okay,
yeah.
that's different. That's like a herd mentality. Um, what we're talking about when it comes to shirk is somebody following somebody out of reverence, out of like deferment, out of like that kind of servitude, actual servitude towards them, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So what do you say about hadith then? Because there's hadith that contradicts the Quran, but because they're so popular, people tend to follow the hadith rather than the Quran. Would that be considered
Yeah,
shirk as well then? Or
yeah. I think.
sorry,
Go
because the thing is, from my perception, I mean, I don't take hadith like all of them. There are some hadith that I do accept if they align with the Quran, but there are those that don't. And I know from my perspective, it seems like it's not the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam who's saying that. It's rather someone who's narrated from someone else, that
Yeah,
heard it from the Prophet. So essentially, it's not really the Prophet. It's been sort of like
yeah, yeah,
like Chinese whispers in a way that's
yeah.
been said.
Yeah, you're getting the wording from this side of the chain,
Right,
right?
right, exactly. Yeah.
So you have to always remember that what you're hearing is what's coming out this side of the pipe, right? We say the Messenger of Allah said, but everything that you hear is what comes out this side of the chain. So
Mm,
whoever the last person in the rating was, right? These are his words, really, right?
mm,
And they're supposed to be a representation of what the Prophet said. And even the scholars, they know that when it comes to hadith, that they are translated by meaning, right? That
mm,
most of they're transmitted by meaning. That's not the very wording of the Prophet, right? Um, and they're atomized, of course. You don't know the situation where they were in,
yeah,
how they
yeah.
were said, and stuff like that. I mean, I look at some like half sentence hadiths like "Sallu kama ra'aytumuni usalli," like pray as you see me pray. Okay, did the Prophet just say that? He just stood in the minbar and said that,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
How did that narration come about, right? I imagine it was probably something like the Prophet just prayed, and people would, and he just left them when the Quran says establish prayer. Um, he prayed, and he never like told them, okay, you have to pray this way or that way, this way. It's only when they came to him and asked him, okay, how should we pray? And he said, okay, pray as you see me pray, right? Say,
Mm,
pray as you see me pray. I imagine it to be more like that rather than him imposing by himself a way for everybody to pray. Everybody, gathering them and say, this is how you should pray, right? So we lose the context in a lot of hadiths are gone. But to your question about whether following hadith is, I don't think it's the following of the hadith itself, a specific hadith which is shirk. I think the shirk would be in the whole mentality of it'll be more like the shirk will be more like towards the madhab or towards the sect, right? Rather than towards individual hadith. Because why are you following this individual hadith, right? If you know this verse of the Quran says this, right? Like let's say the verse about say there is nothing, I find nothing in what has been revealed to me haram concerning what you should eat except that it should be, and then there's a list of things which are haram. I mean, that's a very emphatic introduction, right? The Prophet himself is saying, I mean, so this is a hadith itself. Qul, and the Prophet's being commanded to say this. So he actually said this, right? So this is like a hadith which is not even hadith, it's a commandment by Allah to the Prophet, and we know that the Prophet would have fulfilled it. He would have said that. So we know this is like the most sahih hadith, right? The things where the Prophet was commanded to say in the Quran, we know that he said them. So he said, I do not find in anything which has revealed to me to be haram concerning what you consume, except that it should be, the dead or, blood or flesh of swine, etc. Right? And so it's negating everything about these things. And then somebody comes along and says, yes, it's there's a hadith which says it's haram to eat, for example, lions, right? I remember that Dr. Jonathan Brown in his, I still need to do the next videos for those, but he was talking about how his kids were asking, can I eat a lion burger? Like the kids were like, yeah, I want a burger of lion, yeah. Young boys, right?
Yeah.
And he was saying, well, you can't eat that, it's haram. Why is it haram? The hadith says so. Okay. Well, okay. So if you know the hadith says this, but the Quran says this, why exactly are you following the hadith here? Right? You have to actually look at what's the reasoning behind that. And the reasoning really isn't because of the hadith. It isn't because of the hadith. There are many hadiths which the scholars tell you to ignore, right? Sahih hadiths. You're really following this hadith because the scholars are telling you to follow this hadith. That's where the ibadah is, right? It's not in the actual hadith itself. It's in the edifice, the religious edifice, which makes you submit to the hadith. How does it make you submit to the hadith? Because you're submitting to them, right? You're submitting to the scholars, to the sect. You're saying this is, they're telling you this is how it should be, and you must follow us. And if you don't, you're not a Muslim. You're this.
Sorry, I'm just going to play devil's advocate here. So in Tashayyu, where they have imams, amongst the imams, they say that I think there's one hadith in Shiism that where they say you can't eat fish that don't have a scale or don't have scales, and I think even in the Quran it tells us to obey imams. Allah appoints imams and for us to obey the Prophet. Obey Allah, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and those who are
in authority. Yes.
Yeah, those who are authority. Yeah, exactly. And what I believe is that I believe that the Imams alayhi salam were the Ahlul Bayt were also the Imams, and they had established authority from Allah, and things like what they told us to what is halal and haram and all that stuff. Would you say that their hadith can be sort of discounted, or would it be shirk, or what would you?
Well, I would say for that when it comes to like obeying the rules and things like this, just generally imams or rulers or anything like that, right? Don't know. Yeah, of course you should obey them, right? But there's a limit to that, right? There's a limit to that, and so I mean, one of them is a haram halal, right? I mean, for example, Umar ibn Khattab, right? He made certain he made the Hajj of tamattu haram, right? He basically said don't do it, and from that khutbah, I think it was Ali himself who got up and said, Labbaik Allahumma Hajj wa Umrah. He said, you know what, you say this, I'm going now to do Hajj and Umrah. I'm going to do tamattu, right? Because there's a limit to what they're allowed to, like the halal and haram, for example, absolutely not, right? Now, but let's say there's a reason for um, for the king or the scholar or whatever. They're making something not allowed, right? And you, as long as you understand, if you want to follow it, you can follow it as being something temporary, right?
Okay.
Like,
Yeah.
okay, then it's just something. It's not part of the deen, right?
Mm.
But he's commanding this, right? And I'm just gonna obey it as a part of the obedience to the ruler, right?
Mm.
Not creating trouble, not creating waves, right? Maybe there's a reason why he's saying don't eat the fish which don't have scales for a certain time, some ecological purpose or some whatever it is, right?
Mm.
But as long as you're not taking that as being part of, when it comes to those things which are clear as part of the deen, the haram and halal, as long as you're not taking that as being them changing the haram and halal, that's it. This thing here is haram, and that's it, right? As long as that is not how you're taking it, then no, I wouldn't call that shirk, right? I just call it,
When you
trying
say
to
that,
be.
do you mean like, for example, making swine halal?
Yeah, for example, let's say
Yeah.
that, right? Right. Let's say, okay, it's you can eat pork right now. Let's say you are in you're like part of some army or something, right? And you're out on an expedition, right? And you have food with you. The army has their provisions, right?
Yeah.
Um, but there's like, I don't know, a nearby forest, and they discover like a herd of swine in it, and he says, you know what, go and capture them, and we'll eat those, right? There you
Yeah.
can obey it, because it could be just like something which has got to do with like a strategic thing. Okay, yes, we have provisions, but we don't know when we're going to be back. We don't know how long our provision is going to hold out for. He might be privy to information as the leader of the army, or the situation, that you're not privy to. So when he says here, it's okay, you can eat the pig and stuff, and save your rations, which are like, I don't know, hardened, trail food, which would last for a long time. No, let's eat these now, because or let us keep our provisions for longer, and we'll be able to continue for longer, whatever it is, right? So it's some strategic benefit, right? Or some temporary thing. Yes, then you can obey them there, right? But in that sort of situation, it's not going to be like, now it is halal. It's not that he's saying it's halal, right? It's part of just again, people in authority have a right to have authority, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
I
That's
agree.
why they're there. They're there to organize, to lead, to keep the community together, to these sort of things. Right? You don't want to impede that, right?
Yeah.
Don't have to have this sort of chaos where anybody will say, you know what, no, Allah didn't say this, so I'm not going to. No, I mean, be a bit common sense, basically, right? Have some common sense about it, right? Sorry, but even in that verse, right, which you pointed out, obey Allah and obey the Messenger and those in authority. But the next part is what? When تنازعتم في شيء فردوه إلى الله ورسوله. And if you dispute in something, which means a dispute is possible with ulul amr, right? You might dispute something, then take it back, return the affair, return it. Return what? Well, it says that the amr, return the command or the affair, the final judgment, return that back to Allah and His Messenger, right? So it goes to higher authority above them, right? It goes back to Allah and His Messenger. So that's a thing which people don't seem to realize about it. When the verse says "faruduha," what is return it? Return what? Then return it to Allah. It means that the authority that was given, right? So when you start to dispute, you can even the idea behind that even is that if you have disputes with your leaders, those in authority over you, then you can actually have that authority completely returned to Allah and His Messenger, and then they could perhaps give it to somebody else, right?
Yeah.
You're returning it to Allah and His Messenger.
Yeah.
فردوها إلى الله ورسوله. It says أطيعوا الله وأطيعوا الرسول وأولي الأمر منكم فإن تنازعتم في شيء فردوها إلى الله. If you dispute on something, return that dispute back to Allah and His Messenger, right? And then they can decide, right? Of course, the Messenger is not with us anymore, right? But we can return things back to the Qur'an and what Allah has taught us, right? So it comes down to that.
then I mean, I hear this thing of tahrif in the Quran. There's some hadith that talk about, especially in like Sunni hadith, where they say about Aisha and the breastfeeding verses, and Umar saying about the stoning of the, was it
Yeah,
adulteress? Yeah.
yeah.
And then there was a time when I was like at grips with it because there's a lot of confusion. And then there's about Ali alayhi salam's Qur'an, where he had a version that he did while the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was alive, and they didn't accept it. I wanted to understand your take on it. What do you know?
Yeah.
What do you believe?
Yeah, so with regards to that, the narrations that you mentioned about the breastfeeding and the stoning and all that sort of stuff, and and the goat that ate
Yeah.
all of that, right? There's actually the scholar Kara Saifuddin. I don't know if you've heard of him. Yeah, he has an amazing book called The Integrity of the Quran. Yeah, I think that's what it's called, The Integrity.
Because there is a verse in the Quran that says Allah will protect this book. Well,
it doesn't say the book, it's the dhikr, right?
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah, remembrance.
Yeah, it says just the remembrance. Integrity. Where is it? Do I have it? Should have it. The integrity of the Quran. The integrity of the Quranic text. Where do I have it? I'm sure I have a copy of it. Yeah, the integrity of the Quran. I do have a copy of it here. A PDF copy of it. Don't know where I got it from.
Is there
another one here?
Historical narrative? Is that one? The integrity of the Quran, Sunni and Shi'i historical narrative? Is it that one?
It's called. It's by Dr. Kara. Yeah, Sunni and Shia historical narrative. That's the one. Yeah, where he I don't know if you've heard of the Isnad Matan analysis. The like
I think it was a bill.
The ICUM sort of like and it's basically the most modern techniques of verifying hadiths, right? So it basically goes through by looking for common links, by having a complete tree of any narration of how it diverged, and trying to like date a narration by using the common links and things. It's a very sophisticated method, right? And he's actually doing a lot of excellent work. Him and Dr. Joshua Little, who did the Age of Aisha hadith, right? He did a PhD on Age of Aisha hadith, where he subjected it to the Isnad Matan analysis, right?
Yeah. What was the conclusion of that?
Well, then it's he says that it's fabricated hadith. Well, not fabricated, but he says the early, because they don't talk really about fabricated, right? But yeah, he's saying they originated. It doesn't go back to the earliest it can be dated, as it goes back to Kufa, and the idea there is that when Hisham, who was the nephew of Aisha, when he went to Kufa and he wanted to try to propagate, this is what he says, the cult of Aisha, right? So yeah, because Aisha was seen a lot sort of like he was trying to basically make her more important, because all of his knowledge was coming from Aisha, right? Whereas in Kufa it was sort of like more Imam Ali's territory, right?
Right.
And one of the things about Ali is that he learned from the Prophet from a very young age. He spent his childhood with the Prophet, so he learned from a young age. And so Hisham wanted to put this out, that Aisha too learned from the Prophet as a child, right? So that's so he has this thing about it, and all about the idea of the virginal purity as well, because of course there was the ifk, the slander against Aisha. So by making her even younger, it sort of like tries to wash that away. How could she have done this when she's just an innocent girl, right? So there's a lot there. He has a very deep analysis. The main analysis, of course, is the Isnad Matan analysis, the actual like meat of the thing. And then he has he brings out theories about why it was invented, how it came about, all the rest of it, right?
Because there's a thing about Aisha with both Sunnis and Shias saying like how obviously the Shias don't have a favorable view of her because of
Mm,
I think there's even an ayat in Surah saying that her heart deviated or something like that in the
mm.
Quran about her and Hafsa. But
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, and then yeah, so
yeah.
quite interesting.
I'm just saying that because if you want to look that up,
Yeah,
um,
definitely.
and read through it, it's a slog of a read because it's very technical. It goes into all the details of the hadiths and the different versions and where it
That's good.
originated and how. And it does it's a proper deep analysis, right,
Yeah, yeah,
of the hadith. So it talks about that, and it talks about the Shia view of the integrity of the Quran and the rest of it, right? So it's if you're really interested in this topic, definitely have a read about that.
definitely,
Uh,
definitely.
but my view about the whole thing is, of course, that the Prophet did have a full Mus'haf
Yeah,
written during his
yeah.
time, right, while he was alive. That when he passed away, he left two copies, two complete copies.
True. Okay.
One was he left with Ali, and one he left with the Ansar, with Ubay bin Ka'b, right? And then, of course, after after the essentially, Saqifa and the situation where Ali did not become, he was not supported enough to become the caliph. Ali said, "Okay, then this is the situation." So he attempted to give the Mus'haf, the Prophet's Mus'haf, to Abu Bakr and Umar, and they refused to accept it because again, at that time he had refused. He still had not given bay'ah to them, and
Right. Yeah, yeah.
tension was still high, and so they refused. And then later, when the Battle of Yamama and a lot of the Quran passed away, then they decided to make their own copy, right? And you have this the whole ridiculous sort of like narration, storytelling. It's a very storyteller thing that
Yeah.
that Umar comes to Abu Bakr and says, let's join the Quran. Let's make a mushaf, a full copy
Yeah.
of the mushaf. And he says, how could I do something which the Prophet didn't do? And Umar says, well, it's a good thing. And Umar kept on, talking to him until Allah opened his heart to it. And he said, yes, it's a good thing. And then when they come
Yeah.
to Zayd, he says exactly the same thing. Zayd,
Um,
we want to, get the Quran all in one mushaf. And he's like, how could we do something which the Prophet did not do? Right? So it's a storytelling thing. It's a storytelling thing. What are you talking about? They're all just saying the same thing and same reaction and all. It's like, no, right?
what
So
happened
they
to the
decided.
Mus'haf of Ka'b then? The one that the Prophet gave to Ka'b?
It was apparently found by Dr. Suhail Zakar in Syria before the war, just before the war. And he actually went, it was found in what people used to do to preserve books and stuff, especially in dry climates. They would put them in the walls, right?
Oh,
And
right.
then
Yeah, yeah.
mask them over. And so there was this mushaf which was discovered in a wall in this old hut in Syria. And he went out to study it, right? And he actually took photos of it. You can actually find video of him with the photo discussing it in detail. And each page had the Prophet's seal on it, right? And
Wow.
he says that it matches to be in an early mushaf, and so he says that this was written by Ubay bin Ka'b, right? But then the war started, and then things just went to hell, and who knows where it is now. Dr.
Did it
Zakar has passed away
did,
since. Huh?
did it match? Did it match with the Quran that we have today, the Uthmani?
Yeah.
Oh, it matches.
Huh? Yeah, matches. Yeah. So the point is that then they said, okay, they just want. I mean, this narration came later about how they came about it, but in the end they decided to make their own mushaf, right? And it's very interesting that they chose Zayd, right?
Yeah.
Why choose Zayd? I mean, people now think of Zayd as being the primary scribe of the Prophet. He was not. The whole of the Prophet's life, where is Zayd writing things for the Prophet?
Yeah.
It's non-existent, right? They chose him because he was a little kid, basically, right?
Yeah.
Who could be controlled. He was pro Quraysh rather than being pro Hashemite, right? So
Yeah.
he was more along with them. No, if they had wanted that, and why give it to one person, right? One person to do all of this by him? No. If they had really been serious about it, they would have taken the greatest Qur'an, right? I mean, when they're talking about the Qur'an passed away in Yamama, in the Battle of Yamama, I mean, there were many more Qur'an still around, right? Why, much older Qur'an from Quraysh as well, right? From the Prophet's own dialect and tribe and stuff. They could have chosen Ubay himself if they wanted one of the Ansar, right? Ubay was known as the master, the Sayyid al-Qur'an, right? The greatest, the Quran reciters of the Ansar. Why didn't they choose him? Well, they didn't choose him because um, um, he stood on
The
the side of Ali
close.
when it came to the whole
Yeah. They
succession
needed
thing.
someone. They
Why
needed
not?
someone obedient.
Yeah, why not Abdullah ibn Mas'ud? Right, he was almost considered part of Ahlul Bayt, because he used to be there all the time. Right, but he was one of the earliest converts and one of the greatest Quran reciters. So many other options, but they go to this little kid, right? Because he's more easily sort of like controlled and influenced.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, it's hidden away. Okay, you've made it. Why not have everybody else look at it, right? What happens to it? It goes into, a stage of Abu Bakr until he dies, and the stage of Umar, 10 years until he dies. And what are you doing with it in all this time, right?
Yeah, that's
Why
true.
why aren't you why aren't people making copies of it? Why didn't even before that? Why didn't you have people look over it? The other Sahaba look over it? Did we miss something? Is anything, you know? So it's an issue of that. But when ultimately, Quran does get preserved, and I don't think there's any evidence that anything has been lost or added or shifted
Yeah.
from it, right?
Yeah.
That it doesn't seem the case at all. Now, of course, all modern this is from the work of Van Putten and Sidki and others. All of the manuscripts we have now, they all come down from the same typescript, from the same. They call it the Uthmanic Rasm, and they all come
Yeah.
down from the same four primary manuscripts. They say because it's obvious, because you can do this thing where they make a stemma, so it's proof that they've been copied from each other. So all of them come apart from that. Of course, it's not palimpsests, all right. Apart from that, they all come from those, right? But again, what happened to those that Masahif of Uthman? They say Uthman. We don't even know really from the tradition. We don't know how many Masahif of Uthman made. The standard idea is that he made 4, and that's what it seems
Oh,
like.
really? I didn't know that.
That he had 4, and that's what it seems like modern scholarship has proven, because it seems like all of the manuscripts, if you look at the differences between them, because everybody makes slight errors, right?
Right.
In things, because of the slight errors, and these slight errors can be copied by the next person who copies from them. So when you can organize them into a stemma and see what came from what, right? And in that way, you can see that it all came from 4. All the manuscripts we have came from 4 primary manuscripts. Okay, from four primary sets, from 4 regions. They usually put them towards, right? So there was a Mus'haf in Medina, Mus'haf in Syria, Mus'haf in Kufa, and Mus'haf in Basra, right?
Okay, those are the 4.
It seems to be that the one in Medina was the original one, and then the one in Kufa was copied from the one in Medina, and then the one in Basra was copied from the one in Kufa, and the one in Syria was also copied from the one in Medina. So you get this stemma formed. But what happened to the Masahif, the Uthmanic Masahif? This is why I'm of the opinion that it isn't really it didn't all come as copied from the Masahif of Uthman, because we don't see that in the tradition. And
do you mean the current one we have now is not?
I think they were all just copied from material which was sort of like freely available. People had their own Masahif. They copied from each other, right? And if you follow the stemma can be explained as a movement of people, right? If you look at how these places were set up. So from Medina, the first place that Muslims sort of like extended towards was Syria, right? And so, of course, the Muslims who went from Medina and they said, okay, we're going to move to Syria as part of like the expeditions or whatever, they made copies of the Masahif that were in Medina, right? And so those copies ended up going to Syria, okay? And from there, all the Masahif which are descended from the Syrian copies That's why they're all related. And then, of course, later what happens? The Muslims, Umar al-Khattab sets up Kufa, right? He sets up Kufa. So, of course, from Medina, people who go to Kufa, they make copies from Medina as well, and they go to Kufa, right? And that's where he gets all of the manuscripts related to Kufa. And then from Kufa, of course, after Kufa was set up, Basra was set up afterwards. And that's why, and then people from Kufa end up going to Basra. So they make copies from Kufa and they go to Basra. And so now you have the copies of Basra all descending from that grouping, including there's some contamination as well. I mean, they've shown that there's contamination between, so that means there's also some of the, there's some contamination between Medina and Basra, basically. So that
This
means
was during the Khilafat of Abu Bakr.
This was during the Khilafah of Umar, mostly.
Okay.
Yeah, Umar was the one who set up both Kufa and Basra, right? He set up those, right?
Right. Yeah.
And then later on, of course, you have Uthman and the rest. But the point is that when Uthman, so that's my take on it, because we don't have any indication that people paid any heed to the Masahif of Uthman. What happened to them? If you try to track them down in the hadiths and narrations and the history, they disappear very, very quickly, right? Very, very quickly. We don't know what happens to these masahif of which Uthman apparently sent out and which people copied from. If the sort of like the scholarly view of Putin and others is true now, right? Then all of them masahif were copied from those masahif which were sent out. So Uthman sent a copy to Syria, a copy to Basra, and a copy to Kufa, and he had a copy kept in Medina, and people copied from those.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
But where is that? We don't have a single narration of anybody copying from the Masahif of Uthman. There's nobody saying, I have this Masahif and I copied it from the Masahif which Uthman sent to Syria, right? There's no people queuing up to make their copies. There's not even any indication of the burning, right? The idea that, that he told everybody to burn all the other manuscripts. Well, where is that in history? There's no narrations about anybody burning their copies of the Quran. Quite the opposite. In Kufa, Ibn Mas'ud was saying, nobody burn their copies. Hide them, right? And when people revolted against Uthman, one of the things that the charges they brought against him was that he burnt the Quran. Now, of course, those who were sort of who came out in revolt and said that this is one of the reasons is because he burned the Quran. Obviously, they didn't do that. Otherwise, they wouldn't, they wouldn't. So they thought that other people maybe had burnt their Qurans, but they themselves, of course, didn't, right? Otherwise, they wouldn't have come out and said, "Hey, you had people burn the Quran." So the people who came from Kufa, the people who came from Egypt, and who surrounded the house of Uthman, and and they complained to him about this, that, and the other. One of them was, you burned the Quran. Obviously, they didn't burn the Quran. And we just don't see any indication of that there was this mass burning of Quranic material. So I think the influence of the Masahif of Uthman is very much less than it is. I think it can be explained, the data can be explained by other ways.
Yeah. Do you have a video on this? If not, no. I think you should do a video on it, because this is really good analysis, and I think it's a topic that a lot of people are interested in.
Yeah. Especially me. I mean, I'm planning in a few 6 or 7 months or something. I don't know when exactly, to make some changes and maybe try and basically try to do a bit of YouTube full time for a while as I'm making some changes. And we'll see how that goes then. But for the most time, I just don't have time to do these things. I do have a post about it.
Because I remember you mentioned something about the 7 or the 10 is it ahruf or?
The ahruf. So that
was another kind of worms.
That's the post about the qira'at. So that when it comes to the qira'at, of course, I believe that the Prophet only recited in one way only. I think only one way. I think that's the Shia view as well, right?
It is.
Right? And that's, of course, that's the right thing. So all of these qira'at are divergences from it. And I set out trying to find out which would be the most correct qira'ah. And I was surprised from my analysis that, I mean, it's a weak argument. I have to admit, it is a weak argument. The Hafs seems to be the most, is likely the most accurate qira'ah.
Didn't Hafs come? Didn't it come? There's another one before it, no? Or was Hafs the first?
No, so the it's not one of the first. So Hafs, of course, when we're talking about Hafs, we're talking about Hafs and Asim. So it's the riwayah, the version that Hafs recited from Asim. So his teacher, the Qari, was Asim. Asim is one of the 7 or the 10 main Qurra, and in each of those 7 or 10, they have 2 students, who recited from them in different ways. So in reality, we have either 14 or 20 canonical qira'at, right? So you have Asim, and from Asim you have two qira'at. There's a qira'ah of Hafs and there's a qira'ah of Shu'bah.
Does Hafs, is that the one, Hafs al-Asim, that says to wipe the feet for wudu, or is that?
No, that one actually, that's one of the things where I even though Hafs is the closest, I think there are still things which it's still not 100% accurate, right? Okay, so Hafs has it that you wash, not that you wipe, right?
Yeah, that's funny. That's quite strange.
Yeah. So I mean, it comes again. My argument for Hafs is admittedly weak in terms of sort of it's more circumstantial, right? The only real evidence for it that supports it is the differences between Hafs and Shu'bah being very big, right? And that comes down. I mean, it's a technical argument. I don't want to go through a whole of it now, but I have it in that post that you mentioned, right?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'll try to find that post. But I'll wait for those 2 videos on the Qur'an and history, because I think it'd be very fascinating to hear your analysis on those 2 topics.
Yeah, I mean, if it comes to history, I think it's going to be more than. I think it's going to be like a section, like just different things, going through different things in the history. Yeah. But I need to figure out how to actually get into it while.
How would you do it?
I'm not making it into I don't want to make it into. I want to make it into something where what I present will help people to overcome the history as a barrier to the Quran, right? I don't want to do it so much as try to make people despair and see all the rotten things and stuff that were done. And that is important. Whoever is interested in that can study the history even more on themselves. But I want to present it in a way to help people just overcome the issue of the history being a barrier to the Quran, where when you tell somebody that when they can see that the Quran is saying X, Y, and Z, and then they say, but the early Muslims did believe this or that or the other, right? So I want to show that
there was
basically, so it's not so much a barrier.
That would be interesting as well, actually. But yeah, I mean, when I got into it, what prompted me to look into it was your comment on history, when you advised me to look into history and then look into Shia point of view, because it was a lot more accurate compared to the Sunni side. And I think that just led me into a journey, and here I am, with stuff.
There's a very interesting book, by the way. It's called Opposing the Imam. I don't know if you've read that.
What's it called?
Opposing the Imam. Opposing the Imam. It's basically
the legacy of the Arabian literature. Yeah. Okay, Nabil Hussein.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Very, very, very interesting book, which it's academic study about which shows as well some of the changes of just what the Shia Sunni split did to a lot of things. Okay. Including how influence basically later and hadith and things like that. So it's a very interesting work.
Speaking of Sunni Shia, have you seen what's happening with Iran and Israel? Apparently,
Yeah.
Netanyahu is dead.
Yeah, I haven't seen the news for that. I mean, I saw yesterday that
They're not
that they
gonna
had
show
released this AI video of him
Yeah,
of
there's a few
six
videos
fingers.
exposed. Yeah, six
Yeah,
fingers, and
yeah,
even the one in the cafe. Apparently, it
yeah,
was an older video or someone dressing up as Netanyahu. But
yeah.
they're not
It's
gonna
crazy.
show him on the news that he's dead.
The funny thing about what I find funny about that is that Israel has basically got all of the technology is owned by Israel pretty much,
Yep,
especially
yep,
the AI stuff, and
yeah.
yet they released a video like that where they can't get.
The irony.
Yeah, yeah. It's
Yeah,
very ironic. I mean, I've seen lots of AI videos which were done seamlessly well. There's no issues like that. And yet this very important video, somebody, I don't know, throws it together and doesn't check the teeth and the because
yeah.
apparently has a huge number of teeth as well,
It-
and the fingers and stuff. Yeah.
I think
So
at
yeah, I
this
don't know. Has it actually been confirmed that he's dead?
it's just now it's just people
Rumors
saying
right
it.
now.
Like it's
Yeah,
the
just
media's not gonna say he's dead, but it's just
yeah,
people
yeah,
analyzing videos and just speculating
yeah.
that he's dead. But I feel like the time we're living in now is just it's crazy. Have you heard of a guy named Chris Bladeshaw?
No.
So this guy, he back in 2012, he had this sort of premonition, or rather, he was visited by this. He says it's an alien or a goddess or something, and
Mm.
showed him an image of what will happen in the future, and predicted that there will be a war between Iran and Israel, and said like there will be missiles and stuff coming down. And this guy is a credible guy. You can search him up, and he's involved with scientific studies and aliens and stuff. And he predicted this, and he was saying like in March, end of March or June, between those two time, something big will happen. A revelation or a shift in knowledge or something will happen. And seeing the past year about these aliens and sightings and revelation of the Epstein files and some weird
Yeah,
stuff.
I haven't seen the alien stuff, but that sounds more
Yeah,
like a psyop thing to me than anything else. But
yeah,
yeah, I mean that it didn't take that much foreknowledge, sort of like to predict it that Iran's been on chopping block for the West for a long time. So
yeah.
I mean, we'll see what happens with that. I mean, I'm not sure. Anyway, look, bro, do you mind? I've got somebody else who's been waiting to come on very patiently.
Yeah.
Let me
Go
bring
ahead.
them on. If you want, you can stay. I can bring you on again after them.
Yeah. We'll see. We'll see. But
Right.
it's definitely been a pleasure speaking to you, Khalid,
Yeah,
and
definitely.
it's nice to speak to
Thank you so much.
you.
But what's your name, by the way? Just don't mind.
Fahim. Yeah, you just call me Fahim. Or Silver
Fine.
Fox.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Excellent. Okay. Thank you
All
so
right.
much. Fine.
No worries,
Take
Khalid.
care.
Take care.
No
Bye-bye.
problem. There we go. All right. Okay. That was Brother Fahim. Good to see him. He said he was a long time lurker, so it was good to speak with him now. Okay. Dragon Light. Sorry about the wait. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
How you been?
Maybe you wait for so long. I was waiting for like an hour and 20 minutes sitting there.
Yeah, I know. But because I mean, I've spoken to you many times, so it's yeah. Of course, I want to speak to you again. But when somebody sort of like who's never come on
Yeah,
before,
I get it.
yeah, to give him on a bit longer.
I wanted to talk about like why is divination, the divining arrows,
Hmm.
why is it not considered like shirk?
Why is it not considered shirk? Well, I mean, it's not ibadah to anything, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're not in servitude to anything. I mean, it's just it's superstition, right? The divining arrows. It's just superstition. It's not anything. It's like
Yeah.
anything else, right? It's just a superstition. You're like drawing lots and stuff to this. I mean, you can use it for like deciding, short straw and all that kind of stuff, right? But yeah, there's nothing. Even if you believe sort of like this divination is actually telling you things about the future and this or that or whatever. Okay, again, that's just a false belief, right?
Yeah. It's like shirk only in ibadah. Is like there's no other forms of it, right? Like even if you call upon someone else, I
believe that when it comes to shirk is only about ibadah. There are other things in the Quran which are prohibited, which are confused with shirk, right? So
Do you want
that,
me to do
I've
that?
mentioned this before. There's four things, right? So the Quran
Yeah.
talks about يعبدون من دون الله. They are an ibadah to other than Allah, right?
Yeah.
And that's not shirk as well, right? To be an
Yeah.
ibadah to other than Allah, it can mean that you're just completely not in ibadah to Allah at all, right? You have no ibadah
Yeah.
towards Allah at all. You're in ibadah to other than Allah completely. That's not shirk,
Yeah.
right? Because Allah is not even in the equation. He's not a partner, okay?
Yeah.
He's not a partner in your ibadah at all. So there's that. The Quran talks about that. The Quran talks about يدعون من دون الله. They do dua to other than Allah, right? And that
Yeah.
also is not shirk, right? That's dua to other than Allah. And then talks about dua ma'Allah. They do dua to others with Allah. Okay. So now you could say
Yeah.
this is shirk in dua, right? You could say that. But the Quran has this phrase separately from shirk for a reason, I think. Right? So it
Yeah.
talks about
I thought the same.
yeah. So it's just separate, because when it comes to dua, well, I mean, when dua can be, you even can be talking about, there's two meanings in the Quran basically. There's
Yeah.
the dua for like supplication and prayer, and then there's dua of like invoking an
Yeah.
authority, like when you invoke the law, right? I'm going to invoke the law, invoke scripture, invoke the scholars. Okay, that's different. You're not invoking them and you're not calling them. You're
Yeah.
calling upon their authority, right? All right, and so that is a
Yeah.
big problem as well. Yad'una, and you have that. You can see that there was a verse. I should have noted it down, but where it showed that very clearly, where it talked about dua, and then it talked afterwards about the hukum, about judgment, right? Showing
Yeah.
again that it comes down. That was the use of dua where it was about judgments, right? So that the judgment of Allah, and then there'll be people who will invoke the judgments of other than Allah. Okay,
Oh.
that's also dua, dua min dunillah, or dua ma'Allah, to invoke the judgments of others. Okay,
Yeah.
and then the verses talk about how no, Allah is the one whose judgment is on the haqq and the truth, etc. And then you have a phrase which never appears in the Quran because it's actually shirk, right? So the
Yeah.
Quran never ever says يَعْبُدُونَ مَعَ اللَّهِ, that they are an ibadah to others with Allah. It doesn't ever say
Yeah.
that. The reason why it doesn't say that is because that is the meaning of shirk. So it says shirk. Instead of saying that, it says shirk, right?
Yeah.
It says shirk, right? So you have those. That's what I think, right? That there's, these things are always confused together. Also confused together is the idea of having multiple aliha, right?
Yeah.
People think that
It's
that's
not.
shirk as well.
Yeah. It's not like
Yeah.
God. It's like authority, higher authority.
Yeah, but I mean, just like believing in multiple deities or no, actual gods. Let's say you believe in multiple gods, right? The multiple
Yeah.
gods exist. That also is not shirk, right? That also
Yeah.
is not shirk. Unless you're in ibadah to some of them with Allah, right?
Yeah.
So you can have situations where somebody believes in multiple gods, but they are still in ibadah to Allah only. Okay.
Yeah.
So their belief in the existence of other gods is false, right? It's not
Yeah.
true, etc. The Quran prohibits it, all the rest. But in terms of what the shirk actually is, they are not mushrikeen. If they are in ibadah to Allah only, they are not mushrikeen. Now, of course, if they're in ibadah to Allah alone, and they believe in the Quran, right, that the Quran is from Allah, then they will know that there is only one. There's no other aliha with him.
Yeah.
There's no other gods with him, right?
Yeah.
So some of these things, of course, can overlap, right? You can have somebody who is who does dua to others with Allah, and they're also shirk, right? But these
Yeah.
things are separate, right? And that's why, for example, like at the end of Surah Al-Ma'idah, where Allah says to Isa, to Jesus, right? Did you
Yeah.
command people to take you and your mother as two gods with me? And Jesus says, no, subhanaka, I didn't say that. But the point is, afterwards, is Jesus says, in tu'azibhum fa'innahum ibaduk. If you forgive them,
Yeah.
they are your servants. Well, wait a minute. Isn't shirk unforgivable. Shirk is unforgivable, right?
Yeah.
So if this was shirk, Isa would not say, if you forgive them, then they are your servants, and if you punish them, you are the mighty and wise. That would not
Yeah,
be
but
the
like I think
case. They forgive them
I don't
for
know.
saying that. Say it
Yeah.
again.
I've been kind of leaning that shirk is forgivable if you repent in worldly life for one reason.
Well, I
It's
mean, in this example, this isn't world left. This is now in Yom Al-Qiyamah, Day of Judgment.
yeah. It's
Right?
something about the
So
forgiveness then.
So if you say that it's forgiven in worldly life, well, it makes it no different to any other sin. I mean, I did a stream about that, right? Why is shirk unforgiven,
Yeah.
right? To say that shirk is just you can repent from it and be forgiven, then well, everything if you repent from it is forgiven. What's the difference? What is the
Yeah.
difference between it, right? No, when Allah says,
Yeah.
"Inna Allah
Yeah.
la yaghfiru an yushraka bihi," that should be taken seriously. Allah was never going to forgive shirk, right? Never going to
But
forgive.
I've had like one point that go to like Surah Al-Ma'idah 73 to 74.
Okay, hold on. So, Ma'idah 73 to 74.
You're already on it. You're on Surah Al-Ma'idah.
Yeah, this one.
Yeah,
لقد
and right
كفر
after it,
الذين
yeah, the one after it, because like this is talking about shirk, and then after it says, then why do you not repent?
Yeah, of course, repent, right? But it's repent from what? The kufr, right?
Yeah.
It was not saying shirk. Even this is one of the verses which I bring up to show that this isn't shirk. لقد كفر الذين قالوا إن الله ثالث ثلاثة. They have committed kufr, those who say Allah is the third of three. It doesn't say they have committed shirk. It doesn't say shirk, kufr, right? So this is not about shirk. Why is it not about shirk? Because there's nothing here which is talking about ibadah. You'll find this consistently, right, in the Quran, that when shirk, the actual root comes up, sharaka, right? Shirk, shuraka, you'll find there's always a reference to ibadah or to arbab, right, to Lord, because that's what in the end it means. When you have you take somebody as your Rabb, that is part of servitude. You are in servitude to your Lord, right? Rabb and Sayyid, right? The Lord and the slave, right? The Abd and the Rabb, right? And of course, we would, the whole thing about, am I not your Lord before coming to creation? And I did not create jinn and men except that it should be an ibadah to me.
That verse you quoted about am I not your Lord? I feel like that's the trust. Like, it's mentioned at the end of Surah Al-Ahzab. I feel like it.
Yeah. There's that's one of the ideas about it. I mean, the one about the trust, I did do a stream about that, giving my thoughts about it, and I propose that it could be an amana from something, right? It could be, because the word amana, right? It can be, you can say it as being trust, but it can also be safety. So, like I could say to you, "Ataytuka al-amana," I am giving you safety, right?
Yeah,
So
I mean, I feel like it wouldn't fit too well with the mountains in the heaven. Like, it doesn't. That's why.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So a manna from something, and I said it could be that because what's one of the distinguishing factors between the heavens and the earth and the mountain and the human being? Well, permanence. The Quran talks about how the mountains will be, destroyed. That the earth will be replaced with a different earth. That the heavens will be rolled up. That they're not going to have this permanence, right?
Yeah.
So I think that I proposed that the amana is really an amana min al-adm, that it's that the human being was offered to be given safety from ever not existing.
Yeah.
Right? From ever not existing. And because it also says, this amana is allows it will allow later for the لِيُعَذِّبَ اللَّهُ الْمُنَافِقِينَ, so that God will punish the hypocrites, men and women, the mushrikeen, men and women, right? And so that Allah will then repent to the faithful men and women, right?
Yeah.
What has that got to do with that? I mean, if the man had been given to the heavens and the earth and stuff like that, it would apply to them equally, right? So the idea of being accountable, right? I don't think it comes down to that. It comes along with sort of like having permanence, right?
Yeah.
Having permanence. So that is one proposal I made anyway.
Yeah, the verse about the earth being changed to another earth is kind of interesting. I think what it is like because the mountains are gonna get destroyed, this like the sky is gonna get split. It's basically a different earth. It's not the same anymore.
I don't know. I think that there are some things with the thing with prophecies, right? Is they are meant to be done in a way. Prophecies are a very strange thing because, like, if you have a prophecy which is too precise, right? You'll have people trying to do it, to bring it into fulfillment before its time, right?
Yeah.
So I think a lot of prophecies are things where you don't recognize what they are until they actually happen. They're made they're put in a certain way where when they happen, it fits perfectly what the prophecy said, right?
Yeah.
But you can't really craft it to be that way beforehand.
Yeah.
So that's what it seems like to me. So anyway, the Earth being changed to another Earth. I mean, I don't know what that really means. I mean, what does that mean? We're talking about the whole planet? Are we talking about just part of the Earth? Are we talking about
I think it actually relates. You know how every time the day of judgment is mentioned, it's like the mountains are going to be destroyed. Everything.
Yeah, I mean, like, yeah, well, I know what you mean. That basically, like, the topography of the Earth is changed, right? That the Earth is changed completely, like, but it's still the same, like, planet.
Yeah.
Or does it mean that literally it's going to be all just completely changed? I don't know.
Yeah. Also, you remember the stories? I told you about the stories. Like, there's like a bunch of examples of what I mean. Like, you could just kind of stack the stories on top of each other, and it will just fit. There's the story of the guests, Daif Ibrahim. There's like in 1551 and 51:24.
50.
51:24 and 15:51.
So the Dhariyat 50, 51.
No, it's actually 51. Zariyat 51.
No, what's 51 Zariyat? All right, 51 is Zariyat.
Into 24.
24. That's why it broke. Yeah, وهل أتاك حديث ضيف إبراهيم المكرمين.
Both of them, and you could sort of stack them. They could stack the details of both of them. Let me look for the second one. When they entered upon to him, and they got the food and all that, they said, "We're scared of you," and he sensed the fear, and then he told them they're scared of him, and they told him to not fear, and the tidings.
تأكلون فأوجس منهم خيفة. Yeah.
And then تخافوا. And then and he says, Prophet Ibrahim says, where is it? قالوا أبشرتموني على أن أمسني الكبر بما تبشرون. And then his wife says, فأقبلت امرأته في سرة فسقط وجهها وقالت عجوز حكيم.
Yeah, they can be stacked. I mean, they're very, very parallel, aren't they?
Yeah, they're like directly stacked.
Sorry?
They're like directly stacked.
Directly stacked, yeah.
Yeah.
And the other one is in which verse? Which surah?
It's one. One of them is in 15, and one of them is 51.
Yeah, so this is a 51, and then the other one is surah. What is that? 15 is Al-Hijr.
Yes, I think.
Al-Hijr.
Yes.
Which verse?
Verse 51, which begins the story.
51. Yeah, ونبئهم عن ضيف إبراهيم أنتم بعد إذ دخلوا عليه فقالوا سلاما قال إنا منكم وجلون. Yeah, It does, yeah,
Yeah.
it does stack, exactly. Different words used. Here it's using wajal instead of fear.
Yeah, no, like he said, no, he one of them said he sensed a fear,
Yeah.
and then he
فأوجس منهم
says,
خيفة is in الذاريات.
"Wajlun."
And this one it says, but this one says فوجل منهم فدخل عليه قال إنا منكم وجلون. قال إنا منكم وجلون. I'm just saying that a different word is used rather than خوف. It's used wajal.
Yeah, but like I think it's because one of them it says, قالوا لا توجل إنا نبشرك بغلام عليم. Yeah, I guess it did only change one word, and it's what the angels said. They said لا توجل instead of لا تخف.
Yeah, yeah. So it's using wajal instead of خوف.
I guess it's kind of storytelling in the Quran.
Yeah, I mean the punchline of this one is of course وما يقنط من رحمة ربه إلا الضالون, that nobody should sort of like despair of the mercy of Allah.
Yeah. And there's the other story of Maryam. Let me see. It was in Surah Maryam. It was about the angels. Maryam. I'm going to female. Oh, there we go. So one of them is in 342.
342. Yeah.
And
when angels said, "O Maryam, God has chosen you and purified you and chosen you above the women of the world."
Yeah, and then there's another one. The other one is in Surah Maryam, verse. Wait, where is it? Yeah, it's in 2020. Surah Maryam 20.
Yeah. قالت أن يكون لي غلام لم يمسسني بشر. Yeah, you're saying that these ones stack as well?
Yeah, they stack. I've read both of them.
Very interesting. Yeah, very interesting. Another thing which I almost finished with the khatim now, like I've got like 2 more juz to read. The thing which I noticed the most this time reading for the Quran is like before I've noticed that of course it's the muttaqeen. Whenever the people of Jannah are mentioned, it's always al-muttaqeen, right?
Yeah.
In al-muttaqeen fi jannatin wa uyun, etc. I noticed this time that for hell, it's mostly al-mujrimeen, like the in terms of like the group, like the muttaqeen, this, the ones most associated with hell are al-mujrimeen. The
they're kind of like the enemy, like the opposite of the prophets. It's
they've always been the enemy of the prophets. It's very interesting because I'd never noticed it that way. So so how we like. I mean, I've mentioned this, that if you're going to consider something as some people a saved sect, the saved sect are the muttaqeen. The saved sect are the muttaqeen. And if you're going to talk about a damned sect or a sect or a group which is for hell, then they are the mujrimeen.
Yeah.
Right. The parallel to that would be al-mujrimeen are the damned ones. So
and the caffeine as well.
It made me more. I mean, I already looked at mujrimeen and ijram as one of the key. Like I've talked about the big 5.
Yeah.
For Quranic terminology, the big 5 or the big 7 or the big 10. Or I've talked about the big 12. And I put ijram as one of them. So I've listed them before. I put them in Reddit as well. Maybe I'll put them actually now in the chat. Maybe somebody might want to. Let me see actually how this will copy if I put it into the chat. But I've said that if you don't understand these words Quranically, then you will not understand the Quran in any depth.
Yeah.
Let's see how much of this will will go into the chat. Doesn't look like much went in at all.
Yes,
Kind of. Okay, it got split up. I think.
Yeah, I already know. I already saw your posts, bro.
Yeah, no, not for you, but anybody else who wants them
Not
over
for the
here.
people,
So yeah, here
okay.
they are. Yeah, in order. So kufr, and by extension shukr, because it's the opposite of it. Iman, shirk, ibadah, taqwa, and dua. I think if you really don't understand these key terms Quranically, then you're not going to understand the Quran in any real depths, and you can add some more to it. And then right here, particularly kufr, because it's the most misunderstood, mistranslated, etc., etc.
Yeah, it's really
And
so
then
bad.
And then you can add next few. You can add nifaq, ilah, nifaq, and ijram. So that's why I put ijram on the list. So I was trying to make these in general order of importance. So now I'm thinking maybe ijram should be
higher,
right? Because again, I noticed just this time reading for the Quran that when it comes to the group most often associated with hell, it is al-mujrimeen.
Yeah.
It is al-mujrimeen. So ijram is there, and then after that I added, you can add another two, which is dhikr and fisq.
Yeah.
Right. So that I think these are very key terms, but that's the thing that I noticed the most reading Quran this time.
Yeah, I've read all this from ever since the last time we talked. Able to finish.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing which I took away the most. Al-Mujrimeen.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
This brings me to like the main point, like the main goal of the Quran is taqwa, isn't it? I feel like that's kind of the main goal for like people who want to read it.
Yeah, without doubt, that's like the middle aim. I mean, Hassan al-Maliki calls it al-ghayat al-busta, right? So he talks about the aims of the Quran, and talks about the middle aim, because the previous aims take to taqwa, and taqwa will take you to the higher aims of the Quran.
Yeah.
Right. So
just like God said, فَأَلْهَمْهَا فُجُورَهَا وَتَقْوَاهَا.
Yeah. So the and the aims of ibadah, of dhikr, these take to taqwa, and then from taqwa you get the high aims of shukr, and falah, success.
In the end, doing good deeds, it's like it leads to it, kind of. It's kind of how it does it. Let me see. 1, 2. Yeah, because you see only like the faithful and who do good deeds are going to heaven, and the way to get that is taqwa. It's not saying something differently to get into heaven. It's saying it, saying the way to get to it, and the way, and like the actual thing, like the good deeds. That's why God sometimes says al-muttaqina fil jannat and something like that.
Yeah. إن المتقين في جنات وعيون تلك الجنة التي نورث من عبادنا من كان تقيا وأزلفت الجنة للمتقين غير بعيد إن المتقين مفازا so it's a constant when it talks in association with Jannah, it's always al-muttaqin, right?
Yeah.
It's always al-muttaqin who are associated with them. And with hell, it was just very interesting to see the mujrimeen be so.
They mentioned so many times. Nobody ever mentions this. It's like everybody just, so many Muslims, they're like, kind of fake. It's kind of hard to deal with them.
Yeah. I mean, even in the Quran, what does it say is one of the purposes of it, the tafsil. So when we talk about the fasl, how people talk about the Quran, I mean, it's not detailed. Fasl doesn't mean detailed. It's categorized. But it says, وكذلك نفصل الآيات ولتستبين سبيل المجرمين. Maybe I'll put that up on the thing. on the screen. It's a very one of the purposes of the Quran is to make
Yeah.
the way of the mujrimeen clear. So of course you can stay away from it, right?
Yeah.
وَلِتَسْتَبِينَ سَبِيلَ الْمُجْرِمِينَ, so that you may make the, of course it's addressing the Prophet here, so that you may make the way of the mujrimeen clear. وكذلك نفصل الآيات ولتستبين سبيل المجرمين. Or sorry, it can just be, I mean, you could say that this is in the passive, right?
Yeah.
Thus distinctly we explain our signs, that the way of the sinners may become distinct, right? And thus do we expound the revelations, that the way of the unrighteous may be manifest, and as such we make plain our verses, so that the path of the wicked will be clear. I mean, it's translated very,
the
very.
translation is bad.
Yeah, I mean, sinners, righteous, the wicked, criminals here. Okay.
Yeah, these criminals is closer than sinners.
Yeah, I mean, here it's evildoers. I mean, very interesting. Almost every single translation that I have here, anyway, translates them wrong differently, right?
Yeah,
only
some
sinners come.
translates it
Yeah,
as
you have sinners is the only repeat. Everybody else has something which is a bit different, right? Which shows you that, again, that's why I'm saying that some terminology, Qur'an terminology, you just need to sort of like understand on its own terms, right?
Yeah.
Not understand the Quran in depth without understanding these words on their own. Because if you're reading this only in English, when is sinners mujrimeen, and when is it al-fasiqeen, and when is it al-mufsideen? There are these other terms in the Quran.
Yeah, the translations are pretty bad.
They're going to know which is which. That's why I think is very good. What's his name's translation of Baba Shu'aib, right? Where he put directly with each word its transliteration, right? So he put in the it's called thegreatquran.com. He's got it all online. I'm really very impressed by all these people who did these translations of the Quran.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like Sam Garens probably has some of the coolest website. I don't even really care about the notes too much, but
yeah, his website is very nice. But yeah, it's just phenomenal that he translated the whole Quran. Abu Shu'aib as well, that he translated the whole Quran. It is really excellent. I would love to do that one day.
Yeah, I could probably learn how to make websites, honestly.
Well, now it's all AI. You can just use AI to make them, right?
Oh yeah, true. I have another verse that I was thinking about. Let me see. Where is it? Where is it? When he said, let me get it. Yeah, it says, what the heck? I'm looking for. Okay, there it is. It's in the same. It's in 572. Whoever ascribes a partnership to God, God has forbidden him the garden, and his shelter is the fire. Does that mean
572?
Yeah, 572.
It's Isa speaking to the thing, right? This is where لقد كفر الذين قالوا إن الله ثالث إن الله هو المسيح ابن مريم, right? These are the ones who are made kufr. Now, I've mentioned before that shirk is, if you want like a rule of thumb, sort of, right? Shirk is what's in ibadah to kufr, right? The relationship is a shirk and ibadah towards kufr, right? So, I've explained this verse as being a parallel thing. You've got here these people who are saying Allah is the Messiah, right? These are the people who committed the kufr. And the Messiah is saying, Ya Bani Israel, being ibadah to my Lord and your Lord, right?
Yeah, it says yushrik. Does that mean if someone repents, he always goes to hell?
Sorry? Say that again?
Does that mean if anybody still repents, he still goes to hell, or no? Like, does yushrik, or is that in the
saying here,
present?
Whoever is committing shirk with Allah, right? Then Allah has forbidden for him Jannah. Whoever is committing it. It doesn't say man ashraka, whoever committed a shirk.
Yeah.
Man ashraka billah. Whoever is من يشرك, whoever is doing it, right? We're talking about someone who's actively a mushrik.
Yeah, I
right?
mean, I was gonna say the same thing, but
say it again.
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing, but there's the verse in Surah Nisa where God talks about, you won't forgive man yushrik bihi. It's the same word, isn't it, or is it different in that case?
No, it's always man ashraka.
No, it
Sorry,
says
it's always an yushraka. An yushraka, with the an, right?
oh.
Of the an.
Let me
لا
see.
يغفر أن يشرك به, right?
Yeah.
That basically means that any amount of shirk that you do, Allah is not going to forgive it, right?
It says an yushrik. Oh yeah, right. And then in here it says man yushrik. Okay,
Yeah, it's
that's
talking about the actual. Yeah, it's talking about
yeah.
the actual person here, right? Man
Yeah.
yushrik billah,
Yeah,
whoever
actually
is
in the
committing
present.
shirk. Yeah, no, I mean it's talking about the person, because it's talking about inna Allah harrama alayhi al-jannah. God has made Jannah
Oh yeah,
haram
right.
for him. So it's not talking about the sin here. It's talking about the person. The person here is a mushrik.
Yeah.
إنه من يشرك بالله فقد حرم الله عليه الجنة ومأواه النار, and his abode is hell. So it's not talking about the sin here anymore, right? So the idea here is that you've got two competing narratives. You've got the narrative of kufr, which comes from these people, and the narrative of Isa himself, who said, "Being ibadah to Allah, my Lord and your Lord." And whoever accepts the narrative of the kufr, whoever listens to these people, then they are committing shirk. They are ibadah to them, right?
Yeah.
They are ibadah to them. So that's how I look at this verse, right? So they said this, and Isa said, and the reason why, of course, I think Isa said this, because this was happening in his time. I mean, people don't. I mean, we have some indications of that, I think, in the Gospels. I mean, I don't read the Gospels, but I hear snippets here and there. But we have indications of this, of people starting to call Isa God in some form, or like the things where somebody comes to him, "Oh, good teacher," and says, "Don't call me good. Only Allah is good. Only God is good." Or you have all these other things where people started to look at him as divine, right? In some way, right? They started to look at him as divine in some way, and so this is why he is saying that, right? Being ibadah to Allah, my Lord and your Lord. I mean, no other prophet, I think, in the Quran. Yeah, I need to look at this, but no other prophet consistently says, is shown as consistently saying to people, being ibadah to Allah, my Lord and your Lord, my Lord and your. Why is it always repeated that way for Isa? Is it just because the Quran is making a point for us now, or is it because he actually said that at the time? And I think it must be that he said that at the time, and the reason why he kept on emphasizing this, my Lord and your Lord, my Lord and your Lord, is because we're starting to look at him as a Lord, as their Lord.
Yeah.
They say, no, you worship Allah, my Lord and your Lord, right? So he is here countering the kufr of those who say, "Inna Allah huwa al-Masih," that Allah is the Masih, i.e., your Lord is the Masih. And he's saying, no, being ibadah to Allah, who is my Lord and your Lord. And he's basically telling people who are listening to these people of kufr that if you listen to them, you're one of the mushrikeen. Like in the other verse in the Quran, فَإِنَّكُمْ مُشْرِكُونَ. If you obey them, then you are mushrikun, right?
Yeah.
The verse about the haram and halal. It goes back to what I was speaking to the brother before.
Yeah.
إِنْ أَطَعْتُمُوهُمْ. Let me bring that verse out. فَإِنْ أَطَعْتُمُوهُمْ فَإِنْ أَطَعْ. Hold on. Yeah, so this is in Al-An'am, which is it's a sort of very heavy on
food.
shirk, haram, halal, and shirk like this. 6121. It says, وَلَا تَأْكُلُوا مِمَّا لَمْ يُذْكَرِ اسْمُ اللَّهِ عَلَيْهِ, and don't eat from that which Allah's name has not been mentioned. وَإِنَّهُ لَفِسْقٌ, and it is fisq.
Yeah.
وَإِنَّ الشَّيَاطِينَ, and truly the evil ones, which can include men, in the shayateen.
Yeah.
And of course, shaitan is a big kafir, so we're talking about the kuffar here.
No.
Kufr, right? وَإِنَّ الشَّيَاطِينَ لَيُوحُونَ إِلَىٰ أَوْلِيَائِهِمْ, they are inspiring their allies among people, right? Other people, لِيُجَادِلُوكُمْ, so that they may
Yeah.
dispute with you about this, dispute with you about what is halal, what is haram, right?
Yeah.
And then it says, وَإِنْ أَطَعْتُمُوهُمْ, and if you obey them, then you are mushrikun. If you obey them, then you are mushrikun. Because again, like I said, rule of thumb, shirk is ibadah to kufr. It's ibadah to
Yeah,
kufr.
I actually know. I understand what you get now. It's kind of obvious now. You've kind of pointed the verses out.
Yeah,
Also,
so I mean, this goes back to what
an
the brother was
interesting
asking
thing,
about.
right?
If the imams were saying, this fish or that is haram to eat or not. What again? It comes down to what are they arguing about? Are they arguing about haram and halal? In which case, how did you bring that back? Yeah, sorry, did I cut you off? I think you were saying something.
Yeah. And I was also like wondering about not eating over that which God's name has not been remembered. I think it's when you're eating yourself, not when you're slaughtering the animal. Is it?
No, I think it's about slaughter. It is about slaughter, right? Because you're taking away the life of something that Allah has created, and you want to do it in the name of Allah, right?
Yeah.
I think it is about that. I don't think it's just about just say Bismillah over non-halal slaughtered thing, and now it's halal, right? I think it is talking about this.
I think what's going what made me think like that is because you can read 145 in that same chapter, and you kind of see what I mean. It's not including the food.
قل لا أجد فيما أوحي إلي محرم على طعام يطعمه إلا أن يكون ميتة أو دما. Yeah, but it's talking about what food itself is haram, right? The actual what kind of things, like for example, you can't say Bismillah and eat. You can't slaughter khinzir and make it halal. You can't slaughter pig and make it halal. You can't say Bismillah over blood and make it halal. You can't make something which is already dead. You can't slaughter it again and it becomes, right? This is about talking about the actual things itself. It's not talking about because the thing which a sheep is itself halal. It's not haram to eat, right? But we're talking about here about the how you slaughter it.
Yeah.
Right?
I think Surah Al-Ma'idah 3 it adds a lot of things.
Well,
it
doesn't add. It just expands on Meta, I think.
I thought the same too when I read it.
Yeah, all of these are just Meta. Just talking about we're not talking about just something which that whichever way it dies. Like anybody who wants to say, oh well, maybe if something jumps off, then it's allowed. And well, maybe if something is this. So no, it's talking about all of these are in the end just categories of the Meta.
Yeah, I thought the same, but the thing that made me kind of doubt what I was thinking is I didn't think strangling or beating an animal would be considered Meta.
Well, I mean, it's talking about al-munkhaniqa to strangle, means strangle to death, right? So this is why I think I think a lot of this comes down to the state that the animal is in when it dies. I think it does affect you, right? And then I think that there must be a spiritual element that maybe we don't understand, but there might be a spiritual element to to what you eat when it was something alive, right? This is something which had a spirit in it, and and when how that spirit is taken away, maybe it can affect you, or it could just be about gratitude to Allah, about only taking a life, about just the sanctity of life, only taking a life in the name of the one who has given it. It could be just come down to that, right?
Yeah, it looks like it's maita. It's just kind of an
Yeah, all of
expansion.
these are sweet. المنخنقة والموقوذة والمتردية والنطيحة وما أكل السبع إلا ما ذكيتم, right? وما ذبح على نصب. And these are all mostly categories of mesa.
What about the forbidding the sacrifice on altars one is kind of interesting.
Yeah, so it's sacrificed other than Allah, basically, right? So all of these things are, they can't be made. They can't be made, they can't be made halal.
Yeah, I mean,
Something's
God already.
already
Yeah, right
something's
after
already
God
dead.
told you.
Yeah, I mean, because they're already dead. I mean, apart from here, talking about ما أكل السبع إلا ما ذكيتم, right? So what
Yeah.
wild animals are eating, apart from what, if you can get to it before it dies and slaughter it properly, then it becomes halal, right?
Yeah, I guess that the one that the altars one is related to أهل لغير الله.
Yeah, ما أهل لغير الله. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
about slaughtering for
Yeah.
other than Allah.
Yeah, I guess it was like sort of expanding on the points, like in this surah, in this verse, it's expanding on all the points in the beginning.
Yeah. I mean, the interesting thing for me about this verse, it says, اليوم يئس الذين كفروا من دينكم, right? So it talks about, so why is that being brought up in the verse about again the eating and stuff? It goes back to again the other verse where I mentioned,
Yeah.
right? when أطعتموهم فإنكم لمشركون, right? It's again talking about the idea of food, right? Or of obeying the kuffar, right?
Yeah.
Obeying the kuffar is the shirk, right? So he's saying that, but now you have no reason to have this shirk towards the kuffar because now they've despaired. They've despaired of your deen. اليوم يئس الذين كفروا من دينكم. They've despaired. They can do anything against your deen. So don't fear them, right? Don't fear them, all right? And and fear me, and again, don't fear them. Don't be an ibadah to them. Don't all of this, right? اليوم أكملت لكم دينكم. And your deen has been.
Yeah, I think I had a theory about the surah. Like it was all revealed in one day.
All revealed in one day.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, what made you think that?
It's because it says al-yawm. It's اليوم أكملت لكم دينكم.
Yeah,
it wouldn't make sense if the surah was revealed in multiple parts. It wouldn't make sense because there was more.
Yeah. I mean, remember my study in tafsir days, what they say about this is that some people would say that this is the last verse revealed, but other scholars say no, this is the last verse which has any ahkam in it revealed, which have any
but right after it has more.
Yeah, but this is because it was it's talking about the order of things being revealed. So even though because the Quran definitely doesn't seem like it was revealed. The verses were revealed in the order they're in. I mean, a very good example is in this exact surah, right? In this exact surah, we have the verse about wudu, right? About washing for salah. Well, this is one of the last surahs revealed. We know that, right? So that verse itself, it's very difficult to believe that verse about wudu was revealed in the last year of the Prophet's life, of the rest of the surah, right? So it was likely revealed earlier. So I do believe that different parts of different surahs were revealed in different times. So if this surah was revealed all in one go, like you said, on one day, well, when? I mean, it would have to because of the inclusion of the verse about wudu. It would have to be early, right? It would have to be very early because the wudu it's what's been set up for salah, or maybe perhaps even that wudu wasn't established until later.
The end. Maybe and that was
you
the
could,
case.
You could say that, but that'd be very highly doubtful. That for 9 years in Medina in the Prophet's mosque they were praying the 5 times a day, and everybody was praying in the night and stuff. But the verse of wudu hadn't been revealed.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think my theory was confirmed by like actual narration. Surat Ma'idah. It was like a narration about the Prophet receiving it all in one day.
No, I don't. I've never heard about that. I mean, this verse, the main narration I think about this verse is a narration with Umar ibn al-Khattab, where some of the Jews came to him and they said to him, "You guys have a verse in your book, which if it had been revealed to us, we would have taken that day as a Eid." And Umar asks, "Which one?" And he said, and the rabbi, the Jew, says this verse. And he says, "We already know when this was revealed. This was revealed on Arafah. So it's already a Eid, right? That this was revealed in Hajj at Arafah. And so, we can't make it another Eid. It's already a Eid, right? It's already an important day. So that's the only narration I know about that. But the general idea is, that other verses were revealed after this surah, after this verse, right? Other verses were revealed. One of the most prominent ones, of course, is again in this surah, the verse which is related often to Ghadir Khum, right?
Yeah, the final surah itself, I think Surah Al-Nasr. I don't think there's much more. It has that.
No, I think no. Surah Al-Nasr. This is, I think, it's one of sort of like the Umayyad Qurayshi lies to put that as one of the last surahs. It's actually not, right? So it's referencing the Fath, right? جاء نصر الله والفتح, when it comes. So it hasn't come yet. The Fath hasn't come. And what is the Fath in the Quran? The Fath in the Quran is the Treaty of Hudaybiyah.
Oh.
Right? So this is Surah Al-Nasr is earlier than that. And there are actually narrations showing that clearly, that Surah Al-Nasr was revealed before Hudaybiyah, right? Like a little bit before Hudaybiyah. And it's a prophecy as well, because after the Fath came, people entered the Deen of Allah in crowds.
Oh, wait, that makes sense. I don't know why. The tone, I think is the reason I did that is because the tone.
Yeah.
The tone.
No, this was that interpretation was something which was promoted by Quraysh, because the Prophet, there's a bunch of narrations related to this, which is, one of them is that the Prophet said that there's no hijrah after the Fath, right?
Yeah.
After the Fath, there's no hijrah, walakin jihad wa niyyah, right? But the Quraysh wanted the Meccans who later converted wanted to still be considered muhajirin. So that's why a lot of them moved from Mecca to Medina. Like Abu Sufyan moved from Mecca to Medina. He didn't move out of any love for the deen. He was a hypocrite, but he wanted to be thought of later as one of the muhajirin, right? Because he saw, in the Quran talks about the high status of the muhajirin, those who did hijrah. It talks about those who did hijrah. Yeah. So a lot of the hypocrites, the tulaqa from Quraysh, even though the Prophet told them don't do hijrah, don't come to Medina, they disobeyed and they came to Medina, right?
Yeah.
Because they wanted to be seen by people as among the muhajirin and as among the sahaba of the Prophet, right?
Yeah.
So by being in Medina, other Arabs would consider them to be among, okay, you guys are one of the, they won't be able to distinguish basically between them and the earlier converts who did hijrah and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
So based on that, they wanted to, because the Prophet said there's no hijrah after the Fath, they wanted to make the Fath be something much later, right? So they started saying the Fath is Mecca, right? All right. Yeah. So after the conquest of Mecca, there's no more hijrah, but hey, we are, this is talking like right after the Fath is finished. We did hijrah during the Fath for them. They're saying when conquest happened, then that's when we had decided to do the hijrah. So it became politically loaded, basically. It became politically loaded, the fight for what is the Fath in the Quran, right?
Yeah.
So the Fath in the Quran was Hudaybiyah. And that's when there was the explosion of the converts into Islam, right?
Yeah.
At Hudaybiyah, the Prophet had how many with him? he had around 1,400. Okay, this is in the year, what was it, the year 6, 7, around the year 7 Hijrah, right? So
Yeah.
by that's it. But just a couple of years later, when the Prophet actually conquered Mecca, he had over 10,000 people with him,
Yeah.
right? So if you were to project a graph showing the number of Muslims who were with the Prophet, sort
It
of
has to be. It has to be that really.
very slow burn, increasing slowly, and then it was after Hudaybiyah where it shot up, right?
Yeah.
Where everybody joined, and then of course after the Fath of Mecca, more people as well. But the
Yeah.
real explosion of the Fath of Hudaybiyah, because it allowed people to mingle and travel freely and discuss and learn, and anybody who wanted to enter with the Prophet in agreement was free to do so. Anybody who wanted to go of Quraysh was free to do so. Um,
Yep.
no longer war, right? So it was a huge victory for the Muslims to just
Yeah.
be allowed, just to not be persecuted, right, and be allowed to preach and allow people to come to them and go and they to them, and the Prophet, of course.
Yeah.
During that time, he also went against Khaybar. So yeah.
Okay.
Very interesting.
My friend is listening and wants to hear about Hudaybiyah. Not Hudaybiyah. What is it called? The divining arrows and why it's not shirk. Even though I've explained it like 20 times already. Maybe
No,
you
it's
can explain
fine. No, it comes down to really you have to backtrack first and sort of understand what shirk is, right? If you continue to just have this idea of shirk as being, I don't know, some superstitious thing, anything which seems boogie or anything which seems not right, or any false belief is shirk. If you have these sort of like, if you don't have a precise understanding of what shirk is, then you just continue asking, why isn't this shirk? Why isn't that shirk?
Yeah.
Why isn't this? You know, you need to have to actually get that down first. What do you mean by shirk? If you mean what people generally think, which is just associating anything with Allah, well, what does that mean, associating things with Allah? And how divining arrows, how are they being associated with Allah? How are they
Yeah, I
being
agree.
associated?
I said it like 3 times already.
Yeah, I mean, it just comes down. It's just really. I mean, it is. I understand fully, because the mind snaps back to what you have always been told, right?
Yeah.
So let's walk it through it. Okay, somebody who uses divining arrows, right? What are they doing as well? So they take some arrows or they take some dice, let's say, right, and they roll the dice or the arrows, and they say, if I get a 3 or whatever, that means tomorrow it's going to rain. Okay, or that I need to, I don't know, what do people use divining arrows for anyway, right? These sort of things, right?
Yeah.
And trying to divine the
Tarot
future.
cards.
Yes. Let's make it something more real. 2 people want to get married, right? So they go to somebody who uses divining arrows and they say, should we get married or not, right? The person does his divining arrow thing, right? Rolls the dice or pulls out the arrows, and it comes out with, no, you shouldn't do it. You shouldn't get married.
Yeah.
Okay. So where is the shirk in this? Where is it? Where is the actual
That's what
shirk
I'm
in this?
saying. There's no shirk in it. That's why it's called fisq.
Well, what's associating with Allah? What's associating with Allah? Well, so you could say, for example, if the person, if the person is saying, I've done my divining arrow thing, and now you must obey me, right? Now we're getting into something where there's some ibadah, right?
Yeah.
And if the person believes in Allah, right, and believes that that Allah allows him to marry, that it's halal for him to marry, right?
Yeah.
Now this person is saying, no, it's haram for you to marry because my divine arrows say so. Now you can talk about shirk, right?
Yeah. Now it's
Now you can
beginning to become shirk.
there's some ibadah there now, yes, and if they obey them, right? If you're saying yes, shame in person, what you say is true. We will not get married because if you get married, this is going to happen or this is going to happen or whatever. But it has to be that kind of a servitude, right?
Yeah.
This ibadah to the person doing the divination arrows, right? It has to
Yeah.
be that kind of. It could be just a superstition, right? Like the person, they're afraid that this might come true, right? So
Yeah.
this couple who want to get married, they don't decide to not marry out of servitude or out of ibad or out of reverence, but they're superstitious, and then they're afraid. Okay, well, what if it's true? Oh, that's not shirk, right? That's
Yeah.
just them being stupid. Okay, it's just them being stupid. They're being scared. They're being you know some fear mongering, superstitious. That's all it is. It's not shirk. Okay,
Yeah.
so you have to get down to what exactly we're talking about. I mean, just have this idea. Oh, why isn't divining arrows shirk? Well, okay, dig into it. What are you talking about? Give an actual example of it, and then we can talk about it.
Yeah.
But in and of itself, no. I mean, it's just superstition. It's like
Yeah, and
the
I think
horrors.
another hint would be God telling you it's fisk, not shirk. It's fisk.
Yeah. I mean, here, yeah. I mean, like, do we still have this verse up? Let me see.
Yeah, it's in the same.
Yeah, here, for example, yeah. وَأَن تَسْتَقْسِمُوا بِالْأَزْلَامِ. I mean, here it's saying that you should divide things. I think using that as
There's. Well, I don't
right.
even know what that means.
Yeah, it means it's sort of like they should like divide like it's talking about the food here, so of course. So it's like saying about how if you make a slaughter, or that if you kill something like I don't know, a sheep or a goat, and then you decide, okay, who gets which part is based on the arrows. No, give
Yeah.
it fairly, right? Be fair. That's all it's talking about here. But yeah, it's saying here, one tastaqsimu bil azlam. That you should partition. What does it say in the translation? Partition. Yeah, partition by divining arrows. And this one it says that you should. It says that you swear. So it's talking about qasim. So it's
Yeah.
this one here. It's Pickthall is translating it as that you should make oaths using. I don't even know what I mean. Who makes oaths by divining arrows? No,
I don't think it's not.
it's talking about just aqsam.
Errors.
Dividing it up, right? To seek here it is to seek division by arrows, right? They should divide things by arrows. Seek decisions. Here put just decisions. I don't know why decisions. It's talking about so it's being more metaphorical as opposed to seek any decision using arrows, right?
Yeah.
So they want to like expand it a bit because Sahih International is a little bit Salafi oriented, so it's like trying to bring it about the idea of
My friend
the shirk,
said,
the shirk of using divine arrows to make decisions, but it doesn't say that. She's talking about dividing, right? Make division.
My friend said, ain't it associating a divine attribute of God to the divinator, making sharik, like the person knows something in the unseen?
Yeah,
Actually, we already discussed.
Well, no, I mean the person doesn't know the unseen, does he?
Yeah, he doesn't.
He doesn't know the unseen. He's reading arrows, right?
If you obey him, that's the part.
Yeah, I mean, does God use arrows? If you're going to put like, does God use arrows to know the future?
Yeah.
Well, no, right? It doesn't.
He never does that.
He's not doing that, right? So the person who is using arrows to define the history.
Wait, I gotta answer the phone.
He knows a way to read the arrows that will tell the future. Okay, that's not the same as knowing the future. That's like being able to read potents and being able to read signs and being able to read whatever, right? But even just the very idea associating an attribute to Allah, again, that is not shirk, right? That in itself is not shirk. To believe that something has an attribute similar to Allah, right? That is not the shirk which is mentioned in the Quran as being like the haram. It's not about the ibadah. It's a false belief, right? I mean, if you believe that something has an attribute similar to Allah, okay, then that's a belief, right? If you believe something, you'll believe it until you're convinced otherwise. You have no control over your beliefs, right? You don't control your beliefs. And the second thing is, of course, that's not the same. I mean, it's like when people talk about the, like to take the more pernicious example of the whole istighatha and tawassul and these things, right?
Yeah.
Where people say they call upon somebody, or they say, well, it's shirk to believe that they can hear you, right?
Yeah.
Because that's attributing an attribute of Allah to the creation. Well, the creation hears as well, right? Are you going to say that the hearing of somebody who can hear you is the same as Allah just because they can hear you? No, Allah's here. This is you're diminishing the hearing of Allah to the level of that.
Yeah.
Allah doesn't just hear you. Allah hears everything in the cosmos, right?
Yeah.
So if you're going to attribute, saying it's the same as attribute of Allah, no, Allah's hearing is something. Let's say you have some, like there are people who seem to think that if Superman was real, that he has divine attributes.
Yeah.
Superman was real. Like if we had Superman in this world, Superman in this world can hear, everybody on the planet. Does hearing everybody on the planet, is that the equal of the hearing of Allah?
Yeah,
Is that
it's kind of weird.
No, it's not.
People are
It's not, right?
idiotic.
Allah doesn't just hear everybody on the planet. He says everybody in the cosmos, everything, right?
Yeah.
So it's anybody. There's this idea that if anybody just has, if you attribute to somebody something which is just a little bit higher than a human normally has, then that's shirk.
Yeah.
Well, what you're doing is you're diminishing Allah's attributes down to that level. Saying that's the same
Yeah.
as Allah. No, it's not the same as Allah's attributes, right? So ascribing attributes, saying that something has a similar attributes to Allah, you have to say that it's actually similar, they're the same, right?
Yeah.
It's not the same thing. Somebody is sitting there with his arrows, divining the future and guessing that. That's not. Come on, man. That's knowing the future. Like no, it isn't.
They don't know it.
I mean, it's the same as like interpreting a dream. Like somebody has a dream, right, of something, and he interprets that about something that's going to happen in the future. Is that a thing? Is that somebody having the attributes of Allah? Because
Nope.
they know how to interpret dreams? No, it's not, right? And of course, with dreams, you can say yes. It's and there are lots of people who do this, and with dreams which are not even true dreams, right?
Yeah.
They're just these subconscious going this, and the person comes along and interprets the dream and says this and that.
Yeah.
Then they're trying their hand at interpreting something which they think will provide some information of the future, right?
Yeah.
Question is, can that thing provide some information of the future or not? Dreams definitely can, right? And being able to interpret them or not, that's an ability that you can, that's insight. It's got to do with learning, right? You can have some insight into that. And some people think that arrows can divining arrows or whatever can predict the future. Okay, that's false. But again, they're trying to do that. Right? They're trying to use something which, if they think has this property, well, it doesn't, right? But that doesn't mean the person himself can tell the future any more than the person who interprets dreams can tell the future. They're using the dream and trying to interpret that. Or you have other things. Palm readers. You have the teacup stuff, right? There's this thing about tea, like tea leaves, interpreting tea leaves and all this stuff, right? So you have to be just more think through things carefully, and first and foremost, just understand have a solid grounding of what shirk is and what isn't, right?
Yeah.
And also just understand also that beliefs. I mean, there's nothing that you're not going to be held accountable for believing something which is false, right?
Yeah.
Right. If you believe something is true and it's wrong, there's no moral objection to that. There's nothing wrong with that, right?
Yeah.
Somebody who's 2 + 2 is 5, and they actually believe that. Well, that they're wrong. But what is that? Is that like
That's an issue, really.
Right. So it's not wrong, right? It's just something which is wrong. All right. I'm going to have to log off a bit. Let me just quickly check the chat. I think there were a lot of other people who wrote some things here. We have folks, apologies, Khalid going out. We'll speak next time. Oh, were you here in the background? I didn't see him.
He was there, but it's. I think it's a bit late now. It's 17 minutes after.
I didn't see anybody here. I only saw you and the other guy. I was Silver. Fox guy. I didn't see in the private chat either. I mean, I did see when I looked in the private chat in the studio chat, it showed 3 people, and I was like, "Who's this third person?" But I didn't see him. He wasn't like I didn't see him backstage. But I guess maybe it was in a tile underneath, and I should have scrolled down or something. I don't know. So apologies to Fox H96. Next time.
I'm surprised how many people are married.
Well, already spoke to us. I already spoke to him. He says, apologies, Khalid, going out. We'll speak next time. Inshallah, it was a pleasure speaking to you, brother. All right, so this is the brother who I actually did speak to. All right, yeah. I mean, it's late for me as well now, so I think I'm going to call it
Yeah.
night. I need to also...
Yeah, my bad for that. There's so many questions.
No, it's fine. It's fine. But it's getting late over here as well, and I need to... some things I need to do before I go to
Surprised how many
sleep as
people
well.
are married in the join this call, like the Reddit.
Sorry, say it again.
Surprised how many people are married on like the subreddit. Yeah.
Really? Oh,
the
by
guy
the way,
joined.
I did actually set up. I need to actually share this somewhere. I did set up a Telegram. I mean, I used to have a Telegram before,
Oh, finally.
a Telegram channel and group, but I lost that account. But I set up a new one just today because somebody was asking me about it last time. I think on Wednesday, somebody was asking, "Can you please set up a channel or something?" I mean, I'm not sure how much I'm going to be able to be involved with it because
Yeah, anything better than
so many
being
things, right?
subreddit.
Reddit, X, YouTube, it gets a lot sometimes. I mean, I still have how many chats which I haven't replied to on Reddit. So I need to, but I'll share that as well because it will be good for everybody to
Yeah,
get
like
everybody
direct discussions
this channel
rather
to
than
be
like
able to,
Reddit.
to be able to to speak together. People on this channel who follow this channel to be able to maybe commune together and things. So I will share that in the community post.
Yeah.
The link or the QR code for the Telegram channel. Right.
All right.
Okay. So
All right.
I think we'll call it quits there. Is that
All
okay?
right. Yeah.
All right. Okay.
Thank you.
I'll see you there, brother. No problem. Walaikum assalam. All right. Jazakallah khair. I'm sorry I didn't get to see the chat or what was happening over there, but I think people were having. I don't see any questions that were here for me. What does it say? It's Layl, Maghrib time is Layl. So this is when we're talking about night time. I wait 10-15 minutes after Maghrib because I don't trust the prayer time. Okay. You can eat suhoor later than what most people do. The fitna would never had happened if Ali hadn't had done what he was supposed to do, which was to kill the murderers of Uthman. Who let the murderers of a Khalifa go? Islam is about justice. Yeah, I understand. But I think that's not exactly accurate. The situation was an angel, and so was Abu Bakr. Well, I don't agree with that at all, to be honest. I'm sorry to say, my brother Nasir. The Hashemites are Quraysh too. Yes, they are, but there was a division within Quraysh. Quraysh became dominated by the Umayyads. They were sort of like the leaders of Quraysh. That's why you have this dichotomy in a lot of narrations. And that's when we had Brother here on. Okay. No problem, Nasir. No problem at all. All right, okay. So let's end it there, and inshallah, I'll see you guys in the next one. Probably not next week, maybe the week after. And that's it. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.